president, one of the, she's the lady that I actually signed with here when I signed in 2013, I guess. So we
You've
good?
got some presets, 1, 2, and 3, so that you can zoom into that, or you and that, or just you.
I love you so much.
No, you don't.
I actually really do, you know that. I love that you think I have any idea what you just said to me.
Yeah, see?
Oh, she wrote it down.
She's already prepared. She's like,
We've got 1, 2, and 3. And there is 4, but you're not gonna need that one.
I'm not
So
gonna need
just-
the first 3 either. What are we talking about here, Amy?
Okay.
Good grief.
What, the presentation is up. The video is open on one of the tabs as well.
Is
So,
the next video open for financial basics?
no.
Can you get that one? Because I won't use this one.
Oh, you won't? Okay.
No, I love the sound of my voice too much,
Oh, well, in that case.
which is awful because I hate my voice. I figure I'm about out of the voice cords because I have not stopped using them since I was 4. So that was a minute ago. All right, so we have Brent now and he can hear me.
Maybe.
Brent, can you hear me? Ignite watching, Ignite. If you can't hear me, he's not going to do you any good, buddy.
Let's admit all these people that might help.
Is Jimmy on there?
Jimmy's on here.
Okay. Good morning, Brent. Jimmy, can you hear me? Are you there, Darth Vader?
Just let me on.
Sweet.
You want the video, or the?
For financial basics, yes.
Okay. That's the video. There you go.
Cool. And then they'll be able to see it in Zoom. Or he will, depending on who's there. It looks like Brent's there.
Let me set up the right preset for you.
look.
How are you doing?
Hello. Hi. Did you have a good week?
Yeah, I did. Got to run around in the mountains and four-wheeling.
Oh, that's fun.
That's fun. Liam had fun. What's going on here?
I
There
have
we go.
no idea.
How long have you been here?
Okay,
5 minutes?
What?
okay,
Like 10.
you're all set up.
Okay,
You
cool.
can start the video whenever you want to.
Everybody on Zoom can hear me, right? Brent, Jimmy.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Awesome. All right, you guys ready to go? Today we're going to talk about negotiating the deal
Oh, nice.
with Ricky.
Well, you need help. I'm here.
You should close these, just throwing that out there. I thought you were, well, never mind. Okay, bye.
Seriously? Like, I didn't teach you how to negotiate, whatever. Whatever. All right, what we're gonna focus on today. Negotiating the deal, right? Right there on the wall, and our Y4C 2Ts. Number 1, win-win or no deal. If it's not win-win for everybody, it's gonna be really tough to get a negotiation done. So when negotiating, I always try to keep my clients first, followed very closely by the party on the other side. Honestly, unless they just pissed me off, which doesn't usually happen. It's not usually at the party on the other side, it's usually the other agent. So when negotiating, you got to try to find out what is going to benefit all parties. Is it, whether it's monetary or time, those are the 2 things that give you the most leverage, money and time, just like everything else in life, right? So according to this, we're going to break down the common points of negotiation, examine the 3 Ps approach, analyze counter tactics, employ the 3 Ps, recap, create your success list, and the daily 6 habits, the daily successful habits. All right, we're gonna do this a little bit, but it's not gonna be in groups. We're just gonna kind of do it as a class. And you guys in Zoom world, pop in whenever you want. How can your ability to negotiate affect the outcome of the deal? What do you think?
Well, you defend the other party or you can.
Yep.
You know, maybe make your party pay too much or something.
Mhm.
Or maybe-
So I think it's important when negotiating and in terms of affecting the deal, right? Your goal is to always get it to the closing table. Right, as long as it's legal and ethical and I don't have to spend a ridiculous amount of money. And my clients don't have to spend a ridiculous amount of money. I want to get this to the closing table, right? But it's also important to keep in mind, what's their goal? Remember, I told you way back when I started with you guys last week, I always want to dig deep in their motivation, right? If I'm really in tune with what my client's motivation is and what their goal is, it can make that phone call that, hey, listen, if you want this to go forward, you're gonna have to figure out an extra $4,000. If I just call a client and say, hey, you need an extra $4,000 to get this to the closing table, what do you want to do? Not real positive outcome, right? But if I type them back to their motivation and I say, listen, we've been under contract for 27 days. Buying this home checks all of the boxes and connects all of your goals together and accomplishes everything we set out to do. Unfortunately, now you're going to need an extra $4,000. Is that doable to get your goals accomplished? Can you get an extra $4,000 to accomplish your goal? Sounds different than do you have an extra $4,000 to get this to the closing table? Because if I say, do you have an extra $4,000 to get this to the closing table? What do you think they hear?
$4,000, that's it.
I need $4,000 for you to earn a commission. Tell you what, why don't you throw the $4,000? Right? If I say, hey, can you come up with an extra $4,000 somehow, some way, legally, to accomplish your goals? Verbiage is important, right? Give me an example of how you negotiate every single day in your life.
What you're gonna have for dinner.
Sure. I want to open a restaurant called, I don't care.
Yeah. Did you see that TikTok video about that?
I have not.
Instead of asking, like, you know, your significant other, instead of saying, hey, what do you want to go eat for dinner or whatever, you say, guess where we're going to eat.
That's right. Whatever they say first is where you go.
Yep.
Right. That's true, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
We negotiate,
That's actually a great tactic.
right? Hey, do you want, or I'll do, hey, if we're going out to dinner tonight, let's go to this one or this one. What do you think? Just narrow down the two options, right? 9 times out of 10, I really don't care where we eat. I don't. I care if I have to do the dishes or if I have to help cook, which is a design. You think about with technology, put me in the kitchen. Turns out that really loud alarm in the ceiling is not a timer for when you're making food. But presentation and when you're negotiating can be everything, right? And we negotiate every day. We negotiate with ourselves. What am I going to wear? Right? What's the absolute, for me, what's the absolute minute I can get out of bed and still be on time and then add 5 minutes, right? We negotiate with ourselves every day. When you're negotiating in a real estate transaction, most of the time you're going to be negotiating over money. And it's not yours. So keep that in mind. Or you're negotiating time. Spend a lot of time negotiating out a post-closing occupancy agreement, right? For rent back so that the sellers can stay for a while.
I know there's one thing that like I kind of struggled with like Home Depot is that like you're not shopping with your money, you're shopping with the other person's money.
That's right.
And so don't make it sound like, oh, it's an extra $4,000. Like to me, that might be much, but
Sure.
like I can't phrase it that way or
Nope.
put it in my mind that way because it's not my money.
And so, and the trick with that is there are some people out there that are going to go, oh, $4,000. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just, give me 30 minutes to move money around. Other people are going to go, $4,000. Are you kidding me? Like, I can't come up with that.
Mhm.
Right? So you always have to keep that in perspective as well, right? Always ask questions, right? So again, going back to their motivation, right? Can you come up with an extra $4,000 to accomplish all of your goals? No, we can't. I'm going to keep asking questions till I really drill down on is it can't or won't. Sometimes they just can't, and it will kill a deal.
So I have a question,
Yeah.
might be a little bit ahead of the
That's fine.
thing, but, so say you have like say a home that your buyer is looking for,
Mhm.
and it's like checks all their boxes, and then you like run the CMA, and then you're like, wow, this is like significantly overpriced.
Mhm.
You know, like, then what do you do?
I call the listing agent, so at any time, when my buyer says they want to make an offer on a property, regardless of price point or anything, right? Great, let me get back to my office, give me about an hour, and I'll be in touch with you about the offer. I get in my car, and the first thing I do is call the listing agent. And say, hey, it's Ricky with Keller Williams, I just showed you a listing, congratulations on a great listing. My buyer has instructed me to write an offer. What do you think I need to know? What is it you want me to know about preparing an offer for this property? Right? I understand cash is king. I get it. Money is the most important thing typically to sellers. What else would you like me to know? Well, you know, Ricky, like they want a fair offer. They don't want to leave money on the table. However, their most important thing is closing before September 8th. Can your buyers close before September 8th? If they can, I say yes. If they cannot, I'm honest. I say, no, we can't make September 8th work. Right? So finding out what's really important to the sellers. In that process, if I feel like it's overpriced, I may not know, maybe a neighborhood that I've never even been in, although there aren't very many of those. But if I feel like it's overpriced, while I'm on the phone with them and say, hey, can we chat about the price a little bit? Can you please send me the comps that you used in landing at your price? That will at least buy me some time until I can get back to my office and do the research real quick on my own. Listing agent may say, yeah, sure, I'll send them over to you. At which point you will realize that outside of Keller Williams, nobody knows how to do the CMA properly because they will send you all kinds of crap. They send you all the comps that defends their number, and none of those homes are truly comps, right? Or they may say, you know what, Ricky, between me and you, I know we're a little overpriced. Give me an offer of what you think is fair. Now, I'm not going to lowball that guy or that girl. They were honest with me. I'm not going to advise my clients to lowball. I'm going to give a proper fair market value, my opinion on market value, and advise my buyers that's what we're going to write the contract price at. I don't know if it will work. I don't know if we'll get countered. I don't know if we'll get laughed at. I don't know. Here's what I truly think the home is worth, right? Because when you're the listing agent, you're pricing a home, you're trying to price it a number that will motivate a buyer to write a contract offer on it. The buyer sets the value. You're going to come across buyers all the time. They're going to be like, oh, it's listed at 6. I'll give them 580. They need a deal. Buyers have to have a deal. They're not paying full price for anything. And every time you hear a buyer say, I'm not paying full price for anything, you will hear that. They have no understanding of a list price is. Buyers, by and large, will think list price is the value of the home. It's not. It's a kind of a shot in the dark. I'm trying to invoke an offer. I'm trying to invoke conversations, right? So I'll ask them, I'm just curious how you got to your number, right? If it's really atrocious or whatever, like I might even say, listen, I can't find the value with that number. Help me out here. Help me understand how you got to your value. Well, it's what the seller said they wanted. Great. Now I've got a listing agent that doesn't know what they're doing and stubborn sellers that I got to try to get under contract with my buyer. And that's okay. I can do that maybe. And now I know up front. So I'll ask the listing agent, how did you get at your number? Show me how you got to your number. If it's ridiculous, then I can tear it apart and go back to the basics and at least try to figure out how we can construct an offer that might make sense. Same token, you will find sellers and listing agents that have listed way undervalued because they want 14 people to write an offer on it because they think that will drive the value up, which is true if they're a lazy listing agent. I don't need 14, give me 3, and I'll get the most money for it. Common points of negotiation: price. It's always about price and terms. I don't care what you're doing. It's always about price and terms. How much and by when, right? Closing date can be a big one. Now you will run into deals. My worst one was we spent, let's set this up a little bit. I had my house on the market. A guy calls me, he'd seen it on Zillow, wanted to see the house, showed him the house. It took about 20 seconds to figure out it was just the wrong floor plan for he and his wife and his one kid. But I got him as buyers, right? He is the used car sales manager at Arapahoe Hyundai. A plus, what do I got to do to put you in a car today, guy? I get him under contract with a very scorned female retired mortician whose plastic surgeon came home the month before and said, I'm moving to Florida, and moved to Florida with this completely rebuilt nurse. This is an unhappy lady and sales guy. I was like, we're in this one for the long haul, and we have to be under contract for 60 days to line up with his lease agreement that was expiring. We spent 7 days, They spent 7 days. The listing agent and I were just the mouthpieces. She's still my best friend agent in the industry that's not Keller. She's a Remax agent and she's fantastic. We spent 7 days going back and forth. I'm not kidding you, $400,000 two-bedroom house in Jackson Farm. Arguing over the $99 Walmart grill. Now, by law, my buyer was correct. But it didn't matter who was right or wrong. It mattered how could I negotiate this out? Because the last thing that the plastic surgeon had done before he fled to Florida was he split the gas line at his gas fireplace and ran a hard line out onto the deck and hard lined the gas supply to his gas grill. That is now an attachment. It runs with the house. Right? Well, the seller wanted to keep it. And my buyer's like, no, it's attached to the house. And the seller's like, it's a grill, I get to keep it. And 7 days arguing back and forth. In that 7 days, we're also going through and doing inspection. One of the light bulbs is out in the ceiling fan in the dining room. The buyer says, I don't want the ceiling fan, she's got to take it. And I'm like, it attached to the house. If you're arguing the opposite of the grill argument, whatever. Ultimately, we settle on they're both staying. We convince the seller that we'll go ahead and deal with the issue of the ceiling fan, which needed a light bulb if you'll leave the gas grill. Fast forward, we had to readdress the grill and my buyer caved because he needed to move closing. And she was like, if you want me to agree to move closing, I get the grill. So he gives her the grill so we can move closing 2 days. We close, we go to move in, they go to move in the house and there's the grill outside on the front. This happened out on the sidewalk with a sign that says free. That happened, yeah. So it's always gonna be price and terms, right? And you're gonna have to negotiate. Sometimes you're gonna be like, have you?
So a grill plugged into a gas line that's attached to the house is
Yes.
considered attached to the house?
Yes, anything that you need a tool to remove is attached. That's how I look at it. Right? Or if you can pick in your mind, pick the house up, turn it upside down and shake it, everything that falls out is the seller's. What gets me about that is two things. One, technically you need a tool to remove a refrigerator if you have a hardline water line to go for the freezer, right?
See, that's-
But that's still personal property. In the state of Colorado, what else is personal property? Carpet. Now, technically, you could, yes, technically, you could remove carpet if you don't have a tool, if you have like 5 people. Yeah, so it gets a little wishy-washy, right? A clothes dryer technically is personal property. A washing machine runs at the house, it's an attachment. But we get really loosey-goosey with most of that
So
stuff
you gotta
until
be
you run
specific in
into,
your inclusions.
yes, you have to be very specific in your, have you heard the phrase yet that realtors buy a lot of washers and dryers? Because we screw it up. We screw it up, right? I've never had to buy a washer and dryer. I pride myself in that. I did have to write a check for $800 to have carpet cleaned once because I had to have it done by noon that day. I didn't find out till like 9 o'clock. It wasn't pointed out to me and I blew it. I had missed it completely. It was my listing. We get there and the buyer's agent says, hey, by the way, do you have the receipt for the carpet cleaning? And I was like, we didn't clean any carpet. You didn't ask. And she's like, yes, we did. And I'm like, nah. And it was super cool transaction. She was super cool. And I was like, I didn't see it anywhere. So I pull out inspection, objection, and resolution, which is where I was taught to put it, which is fine. And I'm like, there's nothing there. And she goes, look at additional provisions in the original contract offer. And there was buyer's expense to pay to have the carpets professionally steam cleaned, because there was a cat in the house and the buyer's wife is allergic to cats. So I scratched an $800 check to go up 1,200 square feet steam clean, because we had agreed to have it by noon and I had done it. But I've still never bought a washer and dryer.
Dang.
Hot tubs, never bought a refrigerator. Hot tubs are another big one. Colorado, your lender's gonna tell you hot tub is personal property. And I'm like, I don't know how many tools you need and a truck. But Colorado, your lenders are gonna tell you that it's personal property.
Another thing too, with one of the homes that I bought, oh my gosh, like, it was so crazy because like we got to closing and everything, and once we had to move in, they took all the bathroom mirrors. And like, okay, so this house is like really nice, like, you know, it's just like, you know, just like, what,
I
are
have,
you
yeah,
serious?
I have
Because like
argued-
the
I
mirrors,
had it.
literally, like the mirrors, you will be surprised, like if they're nice and everything, they definitely give it a whole different accent to the bathroom.
Yep.
So when that happened, I was like, whoa, the house looks so much more different now.
Yeah,
And then
and
it's like, it was really
technically,
upsetting, you know?
technically mirrors should go with the house, because you need, well, maybe not, right?
If they're just hanging there.
If they're
yes,
just hanging there, no, so make sure that you gotta, if your buyer wants them, they gotta go to inclusions in the contract offer. Right, because when I was the coach, I had an agent who had people under contract. Sellers moved out, they went through final walkthrough the night before closing, and the $3,000 mirror in the bathroom was gone. Because there was no mention of it in the contract, and the sellers got to keep it. Now, the sellers were cool. They could have said, no, you're just stuck, but the sellers were cool, and they were like, we'll be more than happy to just buy that from you. So post-closing, they wrote a check for $3,000 to the buyer, they didn't have to. $3,000 to one person is everything, to other people it's nothing, right?
Oh, and then also, I don't know if you mentioned, but like also the rods, the curtain rods, I've
Yep.
seen that too.
Yep.
Because even though she took the mirrors, she's like, oh, we forgot the curtain rods, please just give them to us. I'm like, no.
Here's how you can
Like,
always
it's-
remember curtain rods. There's a story in Colorado Springs. A husband and wife, very well-to-do husband and wife, have like a $4 million house. As usual, husband's cheating on wife wants to gut him like a fish. They argue for like 6 months over the house. She wants the house, he wants the house. However it came to be, he won that argument and he got to keep the house. So she went into every curtain rod in the house and stuck shrimp in them.
Shrimp.
Yes. 6 months later, the stench was so bad. And he had no idea what it was. Inspectors couldn't find it. Nobody knew anything. The house is worth 4 million. He finally agreed to sell it for like 1.5. Guess who the buyer was?
The wife.
The ex-wife is the buyer. She went and changed all the curtains, smelled away.
Oh, wow, that is so.
Hell hath
smart.
no fury like a woman scorned, and always check your window covers.
So what they say, because I
Wow.
mean, obviously they're saying in their listings that they're gonna take the curtain rods
Yep.
and like the, TV mounts or whatever, like, how do you make sure that it's not just like giant holes left in the wall? Like, you have to put that in.
You gotta address it in the contract.
Make sure you are,
Yep.
you're taking that, but.
In
just make sure that
MLS,
they're
you'll list what's included and what's excluded. Right? Unless it's literally going to be just their furniture and clothes and video games and stuff, do not ever list it with just seller's personal property. Be specific.
Yeah,
Right.
and like also like the TV walnuts, right,
Yep.
all that. Because like you're
Absolutely.
saying, if you have to unscrew, then they still have to be.
You need a
like,
tool,
if
it's supposed to run with
attached,
the house.
Yeah,
So I made a stink on that one time. I was like, listen, like 4 days before closing, agent reaches out to me and she says, hey, sellers just want to make sure that they're good taking on the televisions. So I was like, well, I'm sure, let me double check. I was like, no, those are attached. So I was like, buyer says they're attached. I agree with buyer. I'm the buyer's right on this one. She says, oh, so she goes, really? And I said, yeah, then you need a tool to remove it. It stays with the house. There was no address of it in the contract, which was my fault. So buyer closes and goes to move in. Guess what's missing? The TVs, but guess what's still there?
mounts.
The mounts. They take the TV out without a tool.
Yeah.
So. Right. So it's about finding out what their motivation is. What are their pain points? What are the things that they just are not going to be able to live with or without? Right? I got a listing right now, they just signed yesterday. They have all the standard appliances in the kitchen, right? In the garage, they have 2 refrigerators and a freezer. Wife wants one thing, husband wants another thing, and they're moving to Houston. It took me forever to figure out what is staying and what is not. I think I have it correct. They agree that it's finally correct. But take them to the pain points. What happens if we argue this, we negotiate this, and we come out a little bit less of a win than the other people? Are you all right with that? Right? One of the things that I do with my buyers is if the buyer, I will ask them, I need a list. I need 5 things you cannot live without, 5 things you cannot live with, and 5 whatevers. Now, that list will change after about 3 showings, but that way I know when it comes time to negotiating, I'll know which of those categories to address based on whatever we're negotiating. Right? What's movable? What are you open to negotiating? What are you not? The 3 Ps: prepare. Prep is key to building confidence and ensuring smooth negotiation process. Present, move into the negotiation process by presenting your offer and position. Move both parties close until you have full agreement. It's absolutely true. Now, I will tell you, this is very basic when you're trying to go on a contract. You will very likely be negotiating throughout the entire process. Yes, the vast majority of your negotiations will be going under contract. Who's paying for what? Who's paying? The HOAs is a big deal these days because they're expensive. Someone's got in the contract, right? Someone's got to agree that they're the ones that are going to pay for the status letter, and they're the one, and who's going to pay for the record change fee. I believe that whoever benefits should pay. And my argument on HOAs is the seller benefits from paying the status letter because they got to prove to the buyer that we are in good standing with the HOA. We are not behind on our dues. There are no assessments owed. We're good. I think they need to prove that to the buyer. I believe the buyer should pay the change fee because they're the ones that are going to get the enjoyment of whatever the HOA provides, especially if there's pool and tennis courts and a gym and swimming, 2 pools really, swimming pool, snow removal, trash removal, water, all those things. The problem is that stuff is out of control expensive. Do you know who dictates to the HOA what they can charge for a change fee? The HOA. They can literally, I've seen them be $1,000. And there's no real way for us to track it unless you happen to know an agent or the listing agent of who sold something in that neighborhood happened to have listed it in the MLS. The only for surefire way you can definitely know for sure is to call the HOA. Well, it's Friday night at 8:30 and you just showed 3 homes and your buyer wants to show a home or wants to write an offer on the ones that you showed. You have no idea what the HOA is going to be. So what a lot of agents do will just check half and half. That can become a point of negotiation. Here's a really, really good trick for you. If you're in a multiple offer setting and your buyer has a little bit of cash to play with, what they have available cash to close and what the lender says they need to get the loan. And the house is listed, let's say the house is listed at $350. And the listing agent tells you, hey, if you can get me $362, I think I get my sellers to take your offer. I've got $361 right now. If you give me a $362, they'll take your offer. So you call your buyers back. What you can do is, this is what I would tell my buyers in that scenario. Let's offer $360, and we're going to offer to pay for the title insurance. It's going to be basically, it will be exact net to the seller if they took $362 and paid their own title, or $360 and the buyer paid the title. It's going to be the same cash out of pocket to the buyer, whether it was $362 and the seller paid, or $360 and the buyer pays. It's the same across the board, money-wise. What's different about it is now my contract looks different. So there's a way to write it up in the contract that the buyer pays for the title insurance. It's pretty cool. It's worked a few times for me, multiple offer settings. As far as preparing, know your goal, know your client, think ahead, set clear expectations, be informed, obey the laws. That probably should be first. they didn't, I guess I missed a call and they called and asked me how to write Ignite. Know your client, which you will have done through this, the showing process, right? Upon occasion, this will happen, but not very often. It's not very often if you get a buyer, you show them one home and they buy it. Could happen. Not very often. So watch how your client looks at homes, at showings, right? Constantly be on them and asking them a bunch of questions. Get to know them, right? Ask open-ended questions. Don't ever try never to ask your buyer a question that's yes or no. Unless the answer that you need is really yes or no. And I tell my clients all the time, listen, I have no care in the world. I don't care what your answer is. I just need to know what the answer is so that I know where to go, right? Ricky, 370,000 is our absolute positively, no matter what max. Right? Listing agent says, well, you gotta give me a 372.5. What do you do? Right? Buyer says 370,000 absolute positive max, that's it. Right. So is there anything we can do in the contract to make it more attractive to the sellers? Maybe you gotta bug the listing agent to find out what's important to the sellers. Maybe 60-day post-closing occupancy agreement for free. They don't have to pay rent for 2 months. Maybe that's an option. Never know what might get the sellers. Side note, Ricky, I'm not taking less than 550 for this house. I don't care what it's worth. I don't care what you do to market it. I don't care. I am not taking 550. End of story. Don't bring it up again. Great. I get an offer for 540. What sellers tell you they will take, their bottom line numbers that they will take, you'll be shocked at how much their mind changes when they have an actual offer in front of them. Let them see that number. Let them know that you go under contract tonight. You sign that piece of paper. A surefire 540 is better than, maybe better than waiting for 550. Carry costs, stress, where you're going, what's your motivation, what are we trying to get right? Always go back to what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish selling your house so you can move to Florida where your grandkids are. Or are we going to die on the hill that you're not selling your house for less than 550? Which is more painful, taking 540 or telling your grandkids it's going to be at least another month before grandma and grandpa move there? Right, taking to their pain points. Questions, questions, questions. Questions are the most important thing. All right, let me show you how important questions are. It's been a while since I've done this. Hopefully I can pull it off. Anybody in the room play cards, blackjack, rummy, whatever, right? All right, do me a favor, take out a half a piece of paper on the back of one of these.
Or half.
Yeah, I've got to try to remember on this. Okay, I want you to write. I want you to pick any card in the deck and I want you to write it down. Okay, I want you to remember what you wrote down. Okay. How many cards are in the deck?
52.
All right, how many suits are there?
4.
And those suits are, what are they?
Club, spade, heart, diamond.
This is all based on what you wrote down. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, they are what?
Club, spade, heart, diamond.
Okay, of those two, that card that you wrote down. Of the suits, how many different colors are there?
Black and red.
Black and red. Of that card that you wrote down, right? Is it black or is it red?
Red.
Okay. Is it a diamond or a heart?
Heart.
Heart. Once you divide all of the cards, how many cards in the suit? In the suit of hearts, how many cards are there?
13.
Right, there's ace through king, right? So are we at ace through 5, 6 through 10, or jack through king?
6 through 10.
6 through 10, right? Is it 6 through 8 or 9 through 10?
6 through 8.
Is it 6 through 7? Is it 6? You wrote down 7 hearts, right? You can go through that. Now, usually what we do is I flip that. I wanted you guys to see, usually I'm the one that writes it down, and I get you to say what I want you to say. And I will get you to say the hearts, right? The point is we can get all the way down by just asking the right questions. right? Script practice is the best way to learn what questions to ask and experience. A lot of times when when agents are trying to negotiate to get under contract or they're already under contract, they'll call me and say, hey, the agent said this, what do I do? And my first instinct is to try to figure out what's the right question to ask, right? The person who asks the most questions controls the conversation. So you got to be willing to ask more questions than anyone else. So you can control the conversation and try to figure out what you can do to get your clients what they want and then get this to the closing table so that the other party gets what they want too. Especially with your buyers, because you will spend more time physically with buyers than sellers typically. Watch their body language, right? I had a buyer husband and wife once, and I'm not making this up. I probably showed them 15 homes, which was not an inordinate amount. This was 2016. It was about an average amount. And the husband would walk in like this, front door, he would walk in and he would move around and he would walk out.
He knows.
He did that 14 times.
Really?
Yep. He walked in one day and he goes, I already knew we were gonna write an offer on that house in the body. So watch their body language, watch their shoulders, watch their facial expressions, right? Listen to what they say within reason when they're not talking to you, right? Don't listen to them if they get in an argument over what happened on Friday night, but listen to them when the wife goes, honey, come check out this kitchen. If either party, I used to say wife, but I learned my lesson. If either party says, honey, come look at this kitchen, start writing that offer in your head. Because if one of the parties loves the kitchen, that's the one they're gonna try and buy. Right? This garage sucks. Well, guess what you're not doing? Okay, let's just go and save time. The rest of this is pointless. Right? Unless you want to play show and tell and figure out what kind of cool stuff. I'm a firm believer that in the city of Aurora, every home north of Alameda has an old school pencil sharpener in it, mounted somewhere on the wall. It was like the builders built them and it's weird. Of course, a lot of those were built before electricity, it seems like too, so kind of makes sense. You will get to see some fun stuff. Side note, here's the funnest thing I've ever seen. Was working with a single guy who was buying a condo, like a two-bedroom condo, whatever. And I showed him one time and we walked in and it was obvious that someone of Indian descent lived there. You could smell the curry, which he hated, but I like the smell of curry. I hate curry, but I love the smell of it, right? So we walk around, we look at it, and we're standing in the kitchen right in front of the dishwasher. And I'm like, man, this smells way more like curry right here than anywhere else. So I turn around and I open the dishwasher. You know what's in the dishwasher?
Jerry dishes.
No. Everything that should have been in the fridge and the season rack, all of it. Milk, eggs, cheese, all of his seasoning, their seasonings, all of it, and jammed in the dishwasher. I don't know. I have a picture somewhere still on my phone. It was the most bizarre thing ever, right?
It doesn't even surprise me because I live with my boyfriend's parents and they're from Nepal. And they put stuff in the most random spot. and
Yeah,
it
but
drives me
everything that should
nuts.
be in the fridge was a little much. He was like, that's creepy, let's get out of here. So I get to the front door and I go, no, I gotta know. So I go back to the fridge. I wanna know now what's in the fridge. Right? I open the fridge and it is stuffed full of nothing but unopened paper towel rolls. Both sides. You could not have gotten another single paper towel in there. It was the weirdest thing. You'll see some fun stuff. But get to know your clients so that you have an understanding of what they're gonna want during a negotiation. Never speak on behalf of your client. I say this almost on a daily basis. I cannot speak for my client. I will say I cannot speak for my client. However, this is what I think. Give me a few minutes to get a hold of him and find out. You're gonna say that, you better know how long it's gonna take you to get a hold of your client. Right? Hey, I'll get a hold of my client real quick and I'll get right back to you. Well, that message probably gets relayed from the other agent to his or her clients. Suddenly, I forgot my buyer's in a seminar all day and it's 9 a.m. and I can't get hold of them until 5. What's the seller going through all day long? Stress, right? They don't like it. They're not going to give me what I want. And then they get not by the time I get back a hold of the listing agent, the sellers are mad. Because he said he was going to get back to us quickly. He hasn't. They up all kinds of, and then they start making up stuff in their head. So you have to make sure that you can commit, that you can do what you commit to, right? Be very specific. I never say I'll get back to you quickly or shortly. hey man, listen, I believe I can get back, I believe I get hold of my buyers pretty quickly, I'll let you know by 11, will that work? And then you damn sure better, if you have to drive somewhere, better make sure you get back to them by 11, right? The conversations go very different when you're working with buyers or sellers. Very different. The buyers are always kind of feels like the buyers are trying to pull a fast one or get away with something, right? The sellers want the most money by the day first close to close. That's what the sellers want. As long as they get that, they're fine. Be very careful when negotiating out. It's important to have a really strong relationship with the lender. If at all humanly possible, you need to know the lender. Right? When buyers come to me and say, hey, I'm pre-approved, I ask them for the pre-approval letter right away because I want to know who it is. And if they like, when they say, hey, Ricky, we'd love to hire you, we're already pre-approved with another lender, instinctually I go, sucks. Sometimes it sucks. Every now and then, I just did a deal. I closed it about 6 weeks ago. They brought the lender to the deal. He's Bank of America. I wanted to just shoot myself in the foot the moment they told me that. I called the guy, introduced myself, so we're working together to figure this out. And I have since recommended 2 clients to him because they've got such a ridiculously good deal going on right now with grants and matching down payment and all of that. My clients, I'm not making this up, I can show you on paper, they bought a $255,000 condo in Lakewood. They literally spent $154.
What?
Yep, because Bank of America's got matching down payment assistance, which then you don't even actually have to match it. You can pull yours back and they'll make the down payment for you, and all kinds of grants if they hit certain criteria and the home hit certain criteria. They wrote an earnest money check for $3,000 and at closing got $2,845 back. So guess what he's got? He's got my next two buyers that are in that kind of category. They may qualify for all that.
So that's not, every lender does.
That's not every lender. This is a very specific program to Bank of America.
So how are they eligible for that? Like,
It's based on income and then based on the median income of the neighborhood in which the home lists. So they're not
is it the
eligible
one
for
that
every
like,
home.
is it the ones, those income homes?
It's not income restricted.
Okay,
Well, I mean, okay, so to get that loan, it is income restricted.
okay.
They have to be below, I think, $80,000 a year each or 120 as a couple. I don't remember. The rest of it has to do with the median income of the neighborhood. It's not income restricted homes. It's not like Green Valley Ranch or anything like that.
Okay.
There's a whole website that you got to go and type the address in. It tells you if the home's eligible or not. So that worked out pretty
I wanted
cool.
to, can I talk to you more about that?
Yep, I can get you his name. His name's Jeremy Daniels with Bank of America. I'll get you his contact info. Again, what does win-win mean to you? If I say win-win or no deal, what does it mean to you?
We're both getting what we want out of it.
I mean, pretty much exactly what you said earlier, is like if both parties don't feel like they've won something and completed their goals, then there's likely gonna be no deal at the end if both parties are happy.
Basically the same as what the whole would say.
One, this aspect that the seller's getting what they want and the buyer's getting what they want.
All right, how about you guys in Zoom land? What does win-win or no deal mean to you? Don't you both answer at once? Really, you guys both are just on there and not watching? I see how it is. I agree with you all, with you ladies. I think it means that we've at least come to a situation where there's enough win for both parties. Sometimes in negotiation though, if you're gonna make a trade, you're gonna have to give value to get value,
Mhm.
right? So sometimes they may have to give up something that may be important to them. You've got to really drill down with that and ask them, can you live with this? How much are you gonna hate me if? It's in a true negotiations, I'll say that to my clients. How much are you gonna hate me if? Here's the deal. Sellers will give you what you want on this side, but in return, the sellers want this back. Right? So my client that I closed yesterday was the friends of mine that I sat down, they called me in December and said, we want to sell our house, buy a bigger house. Great. Went to the listing appointment, had a pretty good idea what their finances look like, at least in terms of what they owed on the house. He verified that. I'm walking around the house and I was like, you don't want to sell this house. They're like, we want a big house. And I said, what if you can put a renter in this and still have a big house? Would you incur about $400 or $500 a month more in house payment if someone else was buying you this house? Because I think the math works. And they're like, sure, we'll give it a shot. Well, sure enough, the math worked. They closed yesterday. They had a renter going into their house and they bought the bigger house yesterday. It was great. Said they found one floor plan that they loved. They said, we're not moving because they had no urgency. They didn't need to move. They weren't bursting at the seams. There was one floor plan they liked by Lennar. So we were going to go under contract on a new build in April and they were going to close in November. The price of that home went up $52,000 in 3 weeks. And they could still get the loan, but Jeff said, no, it was $598 a week ago. It's $620 today. We're told by the time we're under contract, it'll be $648 or whatever it was in 2 weeks. He's like, no, I'm not paying that much for that crap. I'm not doing it. So he passed. He said, we'll stay here until prices drop. Okay. 6 weeks ago, in that same neighborhood, that same floor plan, used home came on the market. It was 3 years old. So they bought it. Write an offer on it, it's listed at $595. He said, I'll go to $620. So we write an offer for $620 and guarantee the full appraisal gap. Meaning if it doesn't appraise for $620, he's going to bring the extra cash to the table. We knew we were going to be squeezing that 20 or 30 grand in if we needed it. Because they're going to pull out, if they need it, they're going to pull out a home equity line of credit out of their current home because there was still movement there for any extra money they would need as cash to close. The catch was, in order to get the loan approved, they were going to have to get a lease in place. So he had to go find, and I can't help them with that. Anyway, so we write the offer for $620. The seller wanted a 14-day post-closing occupancy agreement, which in retrospect, I think he just to be a jerk. We write the offer. The listing agent calls me the next day and says, hey, I got a similar offer to yours. He said, I'll be honest with you, I want to work with you. He's a Keller Williams agent in Highlands Ranch. He's like, I like Keller agents. I'm like, I too like Keller agents. He said, when I wrote the offer and I talked to him, I was like, we can give him 30 days PCOA, that's fine. He said, no, he only wants 2 weeks. I'm like, we can give him 30. He said, no, 2 weeks. So he calls me the next day and says, I got another offer very similar to yours. But a couple of things are important. You're Keller Williams and you were first. Being first matters in a multiple offer setting to most people. He said, so I tell you what, if your guys can go to 30 days PCOA, and I was like, I told you last night, I could have done that. That's easy. He goes, and I need you to make your earnest money hard after inspection. Which meant that after inspection, which I write very, very aggressive contracts. I wrote the contract on Saturday and presented it. And our inspection objection deadline was Tuesday. I'm not messing around with inspection. I've sent enough business to my inspector. If I call, he answers. So I've written it for Tuesday. And he said, after inspection resolution, which was Wednesday, your earnest money goes hard. Which means no matter what happens, the buyers are not getting their earnest money back. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, I don't know, man, because we can't get the loan if they don't get a lease in time. And they got to go through the normal loan process and pull out a HELOC. So in my head, I'm thinking, I don't know. So I call my buyers and Jeff's like, nope, not doing it. Screw them. All right, I'll talk to you in an hour. 52 minutes later, he calls me back and he goes, so talk to me about this earnest money. I know my client, I've known him for 10 years, but I know he had another client and he says, all right, what's the upside? I said, the upside is if you agree to this, it's your home. So what's the downside? I said, if for any reason, this doesn't close, the sellers get to keep your earnest money. $5 grand. Thankfully, we didn't write for more than $5 grand because that's what they're asking. And I wanted to urge them to write 10 grand, but they didn't. He said, how's it going? I said, the moment that inspection resolution is in place, which will be worst case scenario sometime Wednesday afternoon. He goes, so in 3 days. I said, yep. And I said, hey, you got to get a lease in place. You got to get the HELOC in place and the normal loan transaction. If you feel like we can get all three of those done in the next 31 days, that's what I, for whatever reason, I have a contract for 31 days, take it. If you think there's any chance that we can't do all three of those, the question is, are you willing to risk $5,000 into our money? I said, now keep in mind a couple of things. I said, and I told him this, I said, this may sound like I'm advocating for you to do this, and I'm not. This is 100% your call. And I do know him really well. I said, you know, this is mom's dream home. This is the floor plan she fell in love with apparently online 2 years ago. This is her dream home. This is your move and forget it. Like, your goal is to die in this house. That's what they told me. Now their kids are like 13 and 11. That changes in about 9 years, I think. But that's what they said. They said it's in the neighborhood that you wanted. It's in a brand new neighborhood, well, 4-year-old neighborhood. It's the schools you want your kids to go to. It's at a fair price, a price you're willing to pay. He said, you really want me to do this, don't you? And I said, no, it's your decision. It doesn't matter to me. But it is mom's dream home. So he said, I'll call you back. So he called back on an hour. We said, we discussed it. He said, we'll do it. We're willing to risk $5,000. He said, if it doesn't happen, we're out to $5,000. He said, but the downfall, he said, the true value of that is if this doesn't happen, we lose that $5,000. It's going to take us an extra year to put ourselves back in a financial position to look at doing this. And I said, well, you do have that year. There's no urgency for you to do this. Other than the urgency of financially, you're just better off having someone else buy you a house for that year, right? I said, and I get it, and I'll do everything I can to make this happen. Problem was, I have as the buyer's agent, once you're under contract, you have very little influence over the transaction itself. I have zero influence over their ability to get the HELOC, and I have even less assistance I can give them in terms of helping find a renter that will sign a 1-year lease, right? So we go under contract, we get through inspection, it was easy, they wanted the furnace cleaned and it failed the radon, they had to put radon mitigation, no problems. We get all the way to last Friday and find out there's a bit of a title problem on the home that they currently own. When they bought it in 2015, the lien was reported twice. When they refied in 2017, the first lien was removed, the second one stayed there. So the bank making them the $20,000 HELOC was like, we're not going to be in third position. You got to get that removed. Well, to get that removed, it takes 3 weeks. We find this out of 2 Fridays ago, we're supposed to close on Wednesday. So fast forward, we had to delay closing 5 days. And I told them, I said, listen, I'll reach out to listing agent. Listing agent's been cool. Sellers seem pretty cool. I feel like we'll be able to get away with this. Just keep in mind, if they say no, if we cannot close on Wednesday, they have the absolute right, the legal right per your agreement to keep your $5,000 and put this back on the market on Thursday. Wasn't thrilled about it, but he also understood that was the agreement that was made. Luckily, the sellers were open to moving it to Monday. They didn't ask for anything in return. So it worked out well, we closed it yesterday. But it was because I know my clients and what was our big goal, right? Honestly, had he forced me to advise him, I would have told him, don't do it. Because the market's sliding, there are other homes in that neighborhood that are that floor plan, and eventually one would have hit the market that would have been for them, that they wouldn't have been in a stressful situation there. And they didn't have to move anyway. But
How do you feel about that right now, as far as like, you know, the builders are still like creeping up, but like,
Yep.
you know, everybody else listing is under that and sitting, you know?
builders will catch up, and the builders screwed up this time. Because 4 months ago, what did the builders do? They took all the buyer's commissions and cut them down to 1%. And said, we don't really need you anyway, because, and they don't, there's nothing to do in the transaction with the builder.
But eventually.
But when that flips, and they need us to bring them buyers, well, guess what my commission just did? You're gonna pay it. If you want my buyer, you're gonna pay me 3.5 or 4%. Because remember when you stuck it in my back and gave me 1? I'm sorry, this is a business, that's what we were told. Right? So the builders will always be a little bit behind in the values. Builders will always be ahead of the curve in terms of what's cool, what are the cool colors, the decorations, all that. They'll always be a little bit behind the curve in terms of sales price and value. So you got to know your clients. You got to know what their pain points are. Turns out Jeff's pain point was, this was his wife's dream home. they have a post-closing occupancy and agreement in place until they get possession of the house on August 27th. Right? It took her less than an hour yesterday after closing to put a picture of the house on Facebook and just said, I got my dream home. So I texted Jeff, I'm like, was that worth all the stress? And he goes, oh, hell no. So, script practice, do your lead gen, do your follow-up. And throughout your experience in the industry, you'll come across the same few issues. Inspection is still the #1 reason the deal blows up. That's one other reason why I write my contract real aggressively. I want my inspection objection, if at all humanly possible, to be done and to the sellers within 72 hours. Because it's the #1 reason the deal blows up, and I want to know as fast as humanly possible if this deal is going to get killed or not at inspection. Because I don't want my buyers out of the market for 7 to 10 days to find out the deal gets blown up at inspection. And when I presented to the listing agent in Tay, in the body of the email, you'll notice inspection objection is in 3 days. There's no sense in messing around with the #1 reason that a deal will die. Worst case scenario, your sellers could be back on the market by the weekend. Best case scenario, it's only 3 days. In multiple offer setting, you can probably still go back to the previous people that wrote offers. And the third benefit is, when you look in the MLS, you can click on that little clock and it will give you the listing history of the house, and you can see how many times it's been under contract. I see home that's been under contract twice already. I'm like,
Yeah.
MLS rules, if I have a listing and I get under contract, I have 3 business days before I have to change the status. If I can get inspection objection done from the listing agent before that happens, and then it doesn't work out, they don't even have to change the status. Because chances are in this market where buyers should understand that they can't ask for much. If it blows up an inspection, there's a reason. Right? $38,000 sewer repair, the furnace is busted. I had a listing, it was a 1-bedroom, like 600 square foot apartment. Actually, technically it was a condo about 3 years ago. And the furnace breaks in the middle of inspection. That happened, that was fun. Be creative in your negotiations. This is my favorite negotiation I've ever done for any of my clients. Take a listing over off of Orchard and Havana area. And we did a pre-inspection because it's a tri-level in that community, of which there are like 500 homes and like 9 tri-levels. Like none of them had sold literally in like 8 years. It was really hard to come up with the value. So I told the client, let's do a pre-appraisal, find out what it's like. So the appraisal comes back at 525. And he says, great, we're selling for 550. And I was like, dude, no, we're not going to sell it for 550. Like, that's what we're listing at, Ricky, or I'll get a different agent. So I pushed him a little bit on it and he was steadfast. We listed at 550. We're on the market 24 hours and I get an offer for 525. And I said, we have an appraisal. The buyers are telling us it's 525. You should take it. And he says, Ricky, I want 550. So are you sure? Usually, and as a general rule of thumb, the first offer is your best offer. It's the one that the buyers are most excited, willing to pay the most money because they're first. He said, no, he refused to take it. He actually wrote me, he made me write a counter that said 550. I'm like, dude, just tell me no. He's like, no, write a counter. We'll see what they say. I was like, all right, so I wrote the counter for 550. Buyer's agent called and said, thank you very much. No, thank you. 65 days later, he lets me drop the price to 525.
Oh my gosh.
This is a true story. We get an offer of 510. And in the offer, they want the driveway replaced. So I told him, he goes, what do you think? And I go, I think you should have taken the offer 65 days ago, but that's irrelevant, huh? And he was like, okay, yeah, you're right. So that's why I'm asking you what you think now. And I said, I think you should take this offer at 510. He said, okay. I said, no, I do not want you touching that driveway until we're through inspection. Do not touch it. It's a leverage piece. We can use it in negotiations to leverage it. They ask for a whole bunch of dumb stuff. He said, okay. So they do inspection. Inspection comes back. The sewer line is busted at the city main under the street. This is in Inglewood. It was a $28,000 repair. Because the city of Inglewood is very expensive when it comes to water repair and sewer repairs, $28,000. So we already know it's worth $525, and we're under contract at $510, and he's agreed to do a new driveway, which he was gonna do himself. It just so happens he's a concrete worker. So I get the inspection objection, and that's the only thing on it is that seller's gonna fix the sewer repair. And I call him and I said, listen, here's the deal. There's only one thing on inspection objection. The problem is, because I've done the research, I called City of Inglewood, talked to my plumber, whatever. So the problem is it's $28,000 repair. And he hung up on me. He called back 5 minutes later. He's like, are you serious? And I said, yep. He goes, what the hell is it? And I said, that your sewer line was busted at the city main. They gotta tear the street up. And he goes, first thing out of his mouth, and he goes, shit, I already did the driveway. And I was like, I told you not to do the driveway. He's like, oh, it only cost me like $3,000. And I was like, it only cost me $3,000, dude. So now you've cost yourself $43,000, well, $24,000 because you didn't listen to me. And he literally says, I'm going to hang up now. Do not call me back until you've negotiated this out. I will pay half. Click. Five minutes later, calls me back and he goes, nope, not even doing that. Call me back when you've got this negotiated out. I ain't paying a penny. Click.
Wow.
So I spent like an hour and I'm trying to figure out what else, but I'm like, this deal's gonna die. And now I know there's a $28,000 sewer repair that has to get done. So I have to disclose that because I believe that's a latent defect of the property. So now I have to disclose that to anyone who comes in the door after that. Which means best case scenario, if you can find a buyer who's willing to do it, I gotta drop the price from $510 that we're under contract at. I gotta drop it to $482. So I want to call him and tell him and explain that to him so that he really understands. And I call him and he answers the phone and he says, did you fix it? And I said, no, and he hangs up. Yeah. So I spent another hour. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure this out. And finally it's, we are under contract $15,000 under value, right? So I called the buyer's agent and I said, seller's willing to be responsible for half of the repair and value. And she says, I think I can get that past my buyers. And I said, great. And his half of the value is I have an appraisal in hand at $525 and we're under contract at $510. There's just $15,000. We're good. And they took it. And we closed at $510. And he'd already done the driveway. So it worked out pretty well. Script practice, script practice, script practice, role play. Role play with your partner and be the biggest jerk that you can come up with being when you're doing your practice and your role play. Come up with every objection in the book. Come up with crazy stuff so that will get your creative juices going and now you can be creative to solve when it's win-win or no deal. If you ever need any help, call anybody on the roster. We will always help you try to come up with
Don't call it anybody.
with some deal. Don't call anyone on the roster. One of two things will happen. Either they'll give you an answer that you like or they'll give you an answer that you hate. If they give you an answer that you hate, call someone else. When in doubt, call me. I'll be happy to either help you out or give you the person that you need to talk to on whatever that topic is. And that's with anything, but especially with negotiations. Right? I always look at negotiations, negotiating how best to get my client's goal accomplished. I'm not just negotiating the money piece. There's always more to it. That may be the biggest one. There's still always more to it, right? Gotta get the sewer line repaired, right? The roof is a disaster, right? Most of the time with the roof, right? Hey, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, get your roofer guy to come out. If you don't have one, I'm sure your agent does. If not, I do, right? To come inspect. You may have an insurance claim. If there's an insurance claim, now we got an easy deal because the seller's got to pay the insurance claim with $2,000 or $1,800 or $2,200, whatever it is, and get a new roof, right? Roofer comes out and says, that's close, man, but this roof is still functional. The insurance is not going to pay for Buyer says, I want a new roof, seller says, you're not getting a new roof, how are you gonna negotiate that out? Right? And know this, not always gonna get the deal done. You're just not, and if you don't, it's more than likely not because of anything you did, it's just because there was not an agreement to be reached between the buyer and the seller. Another thing, you are the voice of your client. You're not negotiating on your behalf, you're negotiating on their behalf. Never speak for them. 100% of the time, the other agent is going to be negotiating for themselves. I can't tell you how many times I've come up with some weird thing and the other agent's like, no, my clients say no. And I'm like, we haven't even hung up on you haven't even talked to them. Right? Because the other agents most of the time think it's about winning. Instead of about, how can we get this to the closing table that benefits all parties? So yes, I understand that you think your seller is going to say no. Did you present them with the option that if they say no to this, the deal dies, the buyer gets their earnest money back, and now you get to go back on the market and start all over again? They have carried costs, whatever their mortgage payment is, whatever their landscape bill, whatever all their monthly bills are, they got to go another month. And the chances are really good you're going to be right back here 5 weeks from now anyway. Let's just settle this and close next week. That's win-win. We're not trying to take advantage of anybody, right? I ask myself every time there's a negotiation to go on, you know, in my brain, I try to figure out, okay, who's really right? So that I know how to communicate with my buyers and how to communicate with the other agent. I never present it as, hey, we're right. I present it as, hey, here's what we think, right? Our opinion is, our perspective is this. How do you, like, let's figure this out, right? I have thrown $600 into a deal because there was no agreement to be made, and I didn't want to have the house go back on the market. So as the listing agent, and we are 28 days in of a 30-day transaction, and this is going to die, am I willing to put $600 of my own money in to make it work? In that case, the answer was yes. I didn't want to have to go back on the market again, right? And what we were negotiating on that one was the buyers were moving from Baltimore, Maryland, right? The window well, the house is 20 years old-ish. The window well had dislodged from being mounted and connected to the foundation, about 4 inches, and it freaked them out. Baltimore, they don't even have basements, apparently. Like the idea of a home with a basement freaked them out anyway, because they'd never seen one. Literally, they have 5 kids, they've never seen a basement, right? And the seller was like, we know it's not my seller's like, it's not a problem. We know that, I'm not paying for it. And I'm like, I appreciate that it's not a problem, I get it. He's like, Rick, you walk the neighborhood, everyone's like that. I'm like, I get that, but that is also irrelevant. The buyer wants this fixed. And he would not move. And he's a decent friend of mine who was moving to Cleveland. And he's like, Ricky, I'm moving to Cleveland next week, whether this house closes or not. You can just sell it again. Now, what I had been through for appraisal and a couple other things with that, I was like, no, I don't want to do this again. So I just said, I'll pay for it. So we gave the seller or the buyer a $600 concession, and I just docked my commission $600 to get it done, because it was not worth it. It was worth it to me to go $600. Right? I've had other deals where call the other agent, you go, listen, if you got to have a cool agent, someone that you kind of trust. Listen, buyers and sellers are not coming to an agreement on this. Do you want to fix this and split it? I've done that a handful of times over the years. Yep, you throw in 400, I'll throw in 400, we'll get this bad boy done. And I think that's on the one with the $600 in the window. Well, I truly feel like that was in the best interest of my seller as well. He just didn't want to see it that way. So I'm throwing money at stuff, right? Sometimes you got to throw money at something to get the best outcome, and that's okay. If you can live with it, just make sure you can live with it and you're doing it for the right reasons. Don't throw money at it because you don't want to negotiate it, right? Just always be open to and be open to masterminding with the other agent. Hey, how can we fix this? Well, in the past, I've done this. Perfect. In the past, I've done that, right? Call me. In the past, I can get you through. There's not a ton of stuff that I haven't at least heard of, seen, or done myself in terms of fixing something at inspection, right? The rest is kind of, once you're under contract and through inspection, there's not left, typically a lot of negotiations left until you find out that somebody can't hit a date that they need to hit. gotta negotiate it out. Nothing's more irritating than the lender calling you saying, "Hey, you should push closing for 3 days." It's great, I need a pony, how about that? I can't just push it, it's not my decision. And the sellers and the buyers have to agree to it, like, you understand that, right? Like, literally, I have to negotiate that out and then send you the document that says, hey, we pushed it. So, just know who you can trust and who you can benefit learning from, and keep your client's best interest in mind at all times. And most of your negotiations will come out win-win. Right? The people on the other side either want to sell or want to buy. That's what they want to do to accomplish whatever goal they're trying to accomplish. What makes sense? I know common sense died in the early 80s in our country, but you can still come to you come to an agreement on what makes sense. And maybe sometimes it's going to pinch, and sometimes it's going to hurt your client or the other people. Right? Don't be afraid from a negotiations perspective to leverage what you know. That same deal with the window well. The guy was moving, he got a job offer in Cleveland. He called, he was at FSBO, had been at FSBO for like 6 weeks. When I found that out, I called him, like, what are you doing? He's like, save myself the commission. I'm like, no, you're not. You got your house listed for a ridiculous amount of money. You listed it at 369, and I figured it was worth 330 at best. So I watched it every week, and I called him, same thing. I called him one day, and he goes, your Keller Williams agents are a pain in my ass. They won't stop calling me. I'm like, well, at least you know there are realtors out there doing their job. I said, I can get those phone calls to stop. And he goes, how? And I go, let me list your house. Then they have to call me. And he goes, nice sales tactic. And I'm like, it's also literally true. I go, tell you what, why don't you let me come give you my listing presentation? We'll go from there. And he said, fine. I went give him his listing presentation. At this point, he knew he was moving to Cleveland. He had no urgency. So I wouldn't give it to him. He literally calls me on Facebook Messenger the next morning at 5 a.m. He says, I got a job offer in Cleveland. I have 40 days to be there. You got to sell my house. I said, great. Went over there, wrote it all up. I literally let him sign in person because I wanted to rub his nose in the fact that I told him he couldn't sell it himself. And I put the list price at 350, and he said, well, 369. I said, I can't sell it for 369 and get you to Cleveland in 40 days. And he said, no, I'll hire another agent who can. And I said, oh, that can't happen. He said, it's 369, Ricky. So I changed it to 369 and we listed. The first weekend, I get the offer from the people from Baltimore at 360. I presented to Bob and he says, nope, I want 369. And I was like, dude, killing me. So this happened. They sent the offer late Saturday night and I shot it over to Bob real quick and I said, we'll go over in the morning. I just wanted you to be able to see. 9 a.m. Sunday morning, the lender calls me, which is not abnormal. Lenders will call you as a listing agent. Some will, some won't. And the lender, she's very nice. And she says, listen, Ricky, you'll notice the contract offer is FHA. He said, I did notice. It's the second thing I look at. I look at price first and what kind of loan is it, just because I want to know. I don't care. I like FHA loans. Fine. She said, I just want you to know they have more than 20% of down payment money in the bank. And they are financially well qualified to go conventional. She said, the problem is with what he does for a living, because he's moving from Baltimore to Colorado. The law says I cannot count his bonuses as part of his income. I can only take into account his base pay. She said, and they just missed by like 0.5% from qualifying conventional based on that. So that's why they have to be FHA. And I was like, cool, thanks. I appreciate the information. That's what she told me. What did I hear?
That they have more money.
That they got more money. I got a seller that's telling me he wants 369. And I'm like, so again, about an hour later, the buyer's agent calls and he's super cool. He goes, Ricky, I just want to know where we're at with this. He said, my buyers have a plane tomorrow at 11 a.m. to go back to Baltimore. I have to get them under contract before they leave. I showed them 10 houses yesterday. They picked 3. Yours was first. So I wrote an offer on yours. If we're not in the running, I understand our deadline's not to this afternoon. He's like, I'm not trying to push, but would you just let me know if we're in the running? If not, like, we're cool with that. We appreciate that. And I'll go write the offer on the second home. I said, yeah, you're absolutely in the running. You're the only offer I got. He goes, well, how many? I said, he goes, how many offers do you have? And I said, you know, this market, it's crazy. He goes, what can we do to sweeten the pot to get you to accept our offer? So I say, tell you what, if you can give me the 368, 369, I think I can push my sellers to accept your offer. And about 30 minutes there, you know, for 369, we go under contract. Now I gotta get it to appraise. So just a quick story, we'll take a quick break on that. So I gotta get this thing to appraise. That floor plan had never closed, that's 30-year-old, 20-year-old neighborhood. That floor plan had never closed for more than 350 in the history of the neighborhood. And I get it under contract at 369, right? My appraisal package that I took to appraisal was 168 pages. I'd gone back to the beginning of the neighborhood and applied the natural percentage of increase of value for 20 years. I had done like all kinds of crazy stuff just to try to get as close as to 369 away, but there's no way now I'm gonna get 369. Appraiser calls me and says, we're gonna meet Thursday at 8 a.m. or whatever day of the week it's gonna be. And this is in either late March or early April. When we get one of our spring snow showers that night, where we get like 19 inches of snow and then it melts by noon. He says, we're gonna meet at 8. That's nothing, 9:30, 10 o'clock, I'm still sitting at Bob's house with no appraisal. Call the lender, nothing. Call the appraisal management company, can't get anyone on the phone. Call the appraiser, I can't get anything. Appraisal deadline was 2 days later. So it must have been a Wednesday morning because appraisal was Friday. I can't get hold of anybody. I'm leaving nasty grams. I'm a pretty nice guy. I try not to do that, but I leave this guy a message. I'm like, dude, this is unprofessional. It's uncouth. It's unacceptable. I've been here 2 hours in a snowstorm. You need to do your damn job and at least let me know what the hell is going on, right? And then I hit the end button really hard, right? Because I'm angry. That's gonna, it's our version of hanging up. Friday, I can't get hold of anybody for 2 days. Friday at noon, I get a call from a different appraiser. She says, is this Ricky, the listing agent on I can't remember the name of the street now. I said, yes, it is. And she goes, this was just dropped on my desk to do the appraisal. The other appraiser was on his way to some appraisal Wednesday morning. The snowstorm got in an accident. He's in a coma. Yeah, that happened.
Oh, wow.
The next message I sent him was a little softer, and I never did hear from him. She says, and I understand you have an appraisal deadline at 5 o'clock today. And I said, yes, I do. But she said, can you be there in an hour? And I said, yes, I can. I walk in, I give her the 168-page dissertation. She looks at the house. She goes, I'll be right back. She went in the house. She took the picture of the 2 things she needed. And she left, and we got power at 369. She said in the email, you did your homework. I trust your value is correct. And I don't have time. And she told me personally, she's like, I don't have time to go through everything. In the email, she said, you know what you're doing. At value 369.
Dang. So, okay, I have a question.
Yep.
So I've seen that with a couple agents where they're like, I'm gonna do everything I can. Like, you know, like you're saying, do my homework and everything to do as much as possible to get it appraised to like the offer that you're submitting, right? Because that way there's not that so much like an appraisal gap or anything like that.
Yep.
Right? So can that really make a difference
Yes.
and impact, like
Yep.
if you do that and actually give it to the appraisal before?
100%.
Really? I didn't
100%.
know that.
The house that I just closed yesterday, Jeff's house, I wrote for 620. He said that was the max you go. I truly felt like it could appraise at 620. I felt very confident, minimum 610. And I told him I can't guarantee it, but that's what I think. The appraiser never reached out to the listing agent. The normal process is appraiser reaches out to the listing agent, they set an appointment, and they go and they meet with the appraisal. When I show up, I've got a packet of all the things that I want to show to prove. I just want to be able to defend how we got to our number. That never happened in this case. The appraiser never reached out to the listing agent, never texted, never emailed, never called, nothing. Randomly showed up like on a Tuesday in the middle of the transaction, rang the doorbell, and the seller's wife happened to be home and she looked the appraiser in, and that's how the appraisal happened. And it came back at 600. I am thoroughly convinced that had the listing agent been able to, that knew it was going to happen, and had presented all the comps and why this house is worth 620, I believe we would have gotten it. And if we had gotten 620, Jeff wouldn't have needed to get the HELOC in the first place, and we would have never had to push closing. So it matters. It 100% matters. Always go to your
That's
appraisals.
a really great pointer, like for future listings, just
Yes.
because, like, I didn't know that you can make a huge difference.
I make a
Just, like,
gigantic
yeah,
difference.
Yeah,
I took a listing of 2 months ago, we listed at 450, and that was a stretch. It was a huge stretch. Because the last floor plan like that closed like 10 days before, 435. And I was like, we'll go 450, because I'm not the agent, I don't like to list below to drive offers. Let's list for the maximum price and see what happens. We were on the market 3 days, I get 13 offers, he accepts an offer at 505 with a full appraisal gap. I don't have to go to appraisal. We're at 505 and the buyer's willing to bring $55,000 or $85,000 if they need it. But I was like, I challenged myself on 2 fronts: integrity, do your job, and 2, I wanted to see how much I could get. So again, I took like 115 pages, I get to the appraisal, we did it, we were the first one that day, we were like 9 AM that day. And he walked in the door, he goes, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. And I was like, do not all listing agents have 10 appraisals? And he goes, I have 10 appraisals between today and tomorrow, and you're one of only 2 that I know will be there. He said, generally speaking, right now, it's only about 20% of listing agents will show up at appraisal. So guess what went into my next listing appointment? I'll show up at appraisal, and 80% of agents aren't doing that. I'll show up at appraisal, and I'll do everything I can to get this to appraise for the amount that you're on a contract. And I did that on behalf of the buyer. My client was the seller. Guess what it appraised at? 505. So I literally saved the buyer $55,000.
Have you ever seen, the lender say, oh, we did like, whatever, and you don't need a appraisal?
Appraisal waivers. So it's going to be very difficult to get those moving forward, but we do see them. I refied my house in July and got an appraisal waiver. What they generally do is they'll run it through their desktop system, and it will just it'll apply a value. As long as that value is at least 20% more than what you're in a contract on, they'll waive it.
100%.
Yeah, they want 20%. So, and it was happening a lot there for a while. But it was really cool to sit at that closing and have the buyer say, you know what, thank you. You saved me 55 grand.
Yeah.
And you could go you light it on fire, you take go on vacation. I don't know what they ended up doing with their loan. Maybe they paid an extra $25,000 and then an extra $6,000 to buy their rate down and save it. Like, I don't know what they did, but they get $55,000 of money that he had already committed to buying this house with. I don't know what he did. He may have just used all of it anyway. I don't know. Right. And know this, and then we'll take a break too. That offer was that we had 13 offers. This one was for the most money with the biggest guarantee. She had one at 500,000. That was a full appraisal gap guarantee as well. This one was FHA. The one at 500,000 was conventional. She said, which one would you take? She said, which one should I take? And I'm like, I don't know, it's your call. She goes, Ricky, we've known each other 20 years. Which one should I take? And I said, I appreciate knowing each other 20 years, and I worked really hard to get my license. I'm keeping it. It's your call. So she says, all right, because yes, we've known each other 20 years, I know you pretty well. She goes, which one would you take? And I said, what was our goal? I took her back to the beginning. I said, what was your goal? When I said, what is your goal? What was your first answer? She said, the most money. And I just sat there. Sometimes you got to let the silence carry the weight for you. Really hard for me. If there's silence, I feel like I should be saying something. And I just sat there. She goes, okay, well, that would be the one for 505. She goes, but it's FHA. The other one's conventional. She goes, now that I think about it, why is that one FHA? If they've got $55,000 to guarantee appraisal gap, why is it FHA? And I said, I have no idea. She goes, I want to know the answer. So I call a listing agent, put him on speaker. Today I'm here with my seller. Your offer is one of the top 2 that she's considering. The difference being yours is FHA, the other offer is conventional. She is curious, why is your offer FHA? And he goes, Ricky, they're fully qualified conventional as well, but given the amount of money that they may have to put down on this for the appraisal gap, the FHA loan's cheaper to get. It's a financial decision for them. If the difference is that being FHA or conventional is the difference to your seller, and I said, well, just so you know, she's here listening. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. Because if that's the difference, if she's going to take the other offer because they're conventional, but if our offer was conventional, they take ours, we'd be happy to sign a counter that makes it a conventional loan. And she says, it really makes a difference to them financially. And he said, yes. And she said, great, I'll sign your offer. And she signed it and we sold it FHA. Right? Got to just listen to what your client's questions are and answer them and make it win-win. And that was really cool sitting at that closing line and saying that buyer 55 Gs or 35 Gs or whatever. I honestly felt like watching what had gone on and everyone had lost their mind a month ago, like it was crazy. I thought maybe I get 475. Praise that value, no conditions. I'm like, what the- why would
No,
I
but
want
that,
to?
that makes you also a better agent as well, because you're doing what you need to be doing, because you're doing both of the interest. I mean, you're saving, you know, you.
Yes, I
the
do my
interest
best.
For both.
My first best interest is always my client. Second one is the clients that I'm in contract with. The third one is the industry. I want to protect the industry. It does literally keep me up late at night, knowing that in the poll of public opinion, real estate agents fall below attorney and car mechanic. We are hated by the public. And that bothers me. And it's our own fault. Because there are terrible agents out there,
Yeah.
a lot of them.
And it's like better reputation and integrity, like
Yes,
all way, because you're actually
Right there.
doing what you need to be doing. like,
win-win or no deal, integrity, do the right thing,
Yeah,
right?
very cool.
That's what I base my business on, at least do my level best, and I fail, and that's okay. Fail forward, as long as I get to keep my license, I don't do anything illegal or unethical. And I'll be honest with you, the one where I called and said, where you said, how many offers do you have? And I said, you know, this market, he said, how can we sweeten the deal? And I said, give me 368 or 369, and I can put yours on the seller. Was that ethical?
You didn't lie.
I didn't lie.
Yeah, and
You
the way
know,
that you
just
said
all
it, like you said, like you didn't say yes or no with the
No, I
market.
did not
like,
lie.
You kind of like said.
But there
That's
are,
crazy.
but
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder if that was unethical to you. I don't know.
I don't think that was unethical, you were just doing. it.
Here's what I know, and here's what, when that argument comes, when I tell that story, sometimes then I sit in, is that unethical or not? Here's what I go back to. We went to the closing table. Everybody was happy. The 5 kids and the wife and the husband were happy to own a home in Colorado. My buddy and his wife and his one daughter were excited because we hit the day they got to be in Cleveland on time, and it was win-win across the board. I just, what my question is then is, would it be accepted 360? We would have been here anyway, but I don't know.
But he's happy though.
Everyone was happy, it was
Yeah.
win-win and it all worked out. And I don't know what would have happened at I don't know what would have happened had that regular appraisal not gone into a coma. You know, and I have no idea how that ended for him. I have no clue. I don't know if he died, if he lived, if he's still in a coma, I don't know. It's also the last time I ever lived in nasty ground in this industry. I refuse, because you just never know. I had a buyer moving here from San Francisco, the Bay Area. And she's selling her home, which is contingent on her buying home here in Highlands Ranch. On Thursday, we're gonna close on Monday. We're done. Right? She closes on her house in California on Tuesday. They have a 3-day right of rescission there, so you can't really be done for 3 days. On Wednesday, she puts everything she owns on the train, except for her sister, 2 dogs, whatever she can fit in the back of her car. And on Friday, she leaves California and comes to Denver. I get a call Friday afternoon from the lender of the buyer buying her house, and he says, I screwed up. This is a disaster. I made the biggest mistake and it's messed up and I need 2 weeks to close. And I was like, you don't have 2 weeks, dude. You had to have closed 3 days ago. He goes, nope. He goes, and I need 2 weeks. Now I got a seller, a buyer I can't get a hold of who can't close on her home on Monday. She's expecting, and she's gonna be in Denver for 2 weeks with nowhere to live. Yep. So she spent, the deal was, the train got here, this is a ridiculous amount of money. For the train, the moving company to store her stuff was $3,000 a day. Yes, and she's got no options.
Wow. She could have just had, well, I guess if she's not here,
And I can't get hold of her, she's traveling in her car from somewhere between San Francisco and Denver.
because otherwise she.
And even if I get a hold of her now, there's nothing that can be done. We can't do anything.
She could have met the move, like, you know,
If it's on a train.
But
They-
why did she do that? How come not sell
It was-
all her stuff and just
it
get
was
some new
cheaper.
stuff?
Well, that was an option. We talked about that.
Because I mean, now,
But
if
the
it's
problem is-
$3,000 per day,
So
you're
here's the
spending more
problem.
money.
She didn't have access to her stuff. They would let her go get it. They would only deliver it somewhere and unload it. She didn't have a place to even unload it. And she could have just said, fine, keep it, but they're not gonna do that until they've accumulated like 30 days worth of $3,000 a day.
What about the, you know, like you guys set up some sort of, if they're gonna deliver it anyways, set up a storage unit to deliver it to.
Well, we thought about that too, but the storage unit, because she had a 48-foot moving trailer stocked wall to wall, floor to ceiling. We couldn't find a
Well,
storage
didn't
unit.
she
We couldn't find
inquire
3
before?
storage units. So we agreed to sell the lender that messed that up ate the cost of it, paid the whole bill. The problem was, he couldn't pay for it. He could only reimburse her. When she's trying to get a loan on a $525,000 house that she can't afford on the loan part, she can't get approval if 14 days of $3,000 a day goes on her credit card. Her finances are frozen in California because some weird rule that goes on when you close on a house for 3 days, you can't touch any money. What does she do? She has an agreement. She knows she's going to be made whole. And this will work. And the seller was willing to wait the 2 weeks because he was moving to Georgia and was behind anyway. But we had to figure out how to piece this together to go ahead and get it all done. So here's what we did. We cleared to close, everything's good. And we're gonna close whatever day it was at like 10 o'clock. Now the lender has to pull credit right before closing to verify credit again, right? So my lender and my buyer, I call my lender, Carrie, I'm like, what are we gonna do? She goes, I got one option. I got an idea. And I'm like, when you say I got an idea, I never really know what envelope we're pushing. And she goes, I'm not telling you what envelope we're pushing. I'm like, I don't want to know. I just know we're pushing it. She said, right. So what she did was she told the buyer, she said, I'll be on the phone with you when you go to the transportation company to pay the $42,000 bill. She's gonna put it on her credit card and the lender's gonna pay her back. And she said, I'm gonna pull your credit. She said, you have the credit card in hand. And she said, I'm gonna pull your credit. When I say go, then pay your bill. So she pulled credit, she said, go, then the buyer paid it. So as far as the loan was concerned, that $42,000 didn't exist.
Wow.
And she was able to get the loan closed and buy the house. So again, how to be creative. When I called the listing agent, because the listing agent, it was her dad's house. And he's retired now and moving to Alabama.
Georgia.
So I said, I called and I said, hey, how would you like an extra 2 weeks with your dad? How else am I gonna present that you need a 2-week delay? So that's how we did it, got away with it. It worked well. All right, let's take 5. Let's be back at 10:42. And then I'm gonna play the video on financial basics. Cool?
Yes.
Also, can I get your contact info?
Sure. Here, follow me.
Yes.
register for classes on Symmetra.
Oh, that's good. I registered for the contracts class yesterday, like realized that I hadn't yet. So,
We need to do the ethics class too, or whatever, right?
yeah, the ethics class, I think I have scheduled for the 24th. What's the date? It's like 4 hours long or like something like that. Well, there's an ethics class like coming up the next week or two, but the one that's like actually required for membership is,
There's two, there's ethics and professional practice and new member orientation.
so the one I have is, orientation and ethics and standards. And it's actually 2 classes, but they put it into one, so you have to register for both classes separately, but it'll all be together.
Which one is what you said?
It's orientation and ethics and then standards, and it's on the 24th. Yeah. So make sure you sign up for both of those, because those are the 2 that came up in my email that are like required.
Sucking new sites.
It's not, yeah, their website's kind of weird.
Yes. So the 11th is the contracts is in person.
I think pretty much all of theirs now are in person.
Oh, except for if it says like today is NAR Code of Ethics 3C.
Yeah, and I think the one that's on the 24th, that's in person. That's gonna be a long day.
9 years. Yeah. There's only 7 agents in my department. I was the productivity coach for 3 years. I was the team leader for 6 drug-free long months. Yeah, run the gamut. All right, agent financials.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you might be. Welcome back to Ignite Elements. Today we got a fantastic topic. It's the last in the session. Today we're going to talk about financial basics, a very important topic. My name is Nick Jenkins. I'm an agent here in Austin, Texas, in the Northwest Market Center. I do both listings and represent buyers. And I want to encourage you folks, before we get started, make sure you've got your participant guide. This topic is a little bit foreign to some folks, so I'm going to try to go over everything carefully. And I also want to encourage you to ask questions if you have them, either on the message board or live if you have the capability.
If you guys have questions, write them down.
So I
We'll go
look
back and
forward to
cover
your
it.
questions. And with that, let's just dive right in. So this is a new topic to Ignite. Historically, Ignite has not touched on this subject. And I want to start by asking everyone a question. You all probably had to go to a real estate school or find some place to take your real estate certification courses. Can anyone remember in any of those courses taking getting any training on financial management or managing your finances? I don't think so. I'm guessing the answer is no. I know that when I went, the subject was not touched upon. And fortunately, Gary Keller and the Millionaire Real Estate Agent have done a great job of outlining some ideas and some concepts around how to manage your money when you're a real estate agent based on what some successful $1 million real estate agents have done in the past. And guys, let's not reinvent the wheel, right? Let's just use what's worked before and build on that. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the concepts that Gary has brought to us to help us get started in our business. And it's like anything else. If you build the habits up now, when it gets busy, when you get successful, and you got things coming at you from all directions, everything will be in place to manage your business financially. So we're going to start today with perspective. From the Millionaire Real Estate Agents, we've got some concepts here that we've identified that are going to help you understand better how to manage your business financially so that you're profitable. And these are just a couple of them, and we're not going to go into every one of these topics deeply. I just want to review them and give you sort of a level set here as to what you need to understand. Number one, you want to set a profit goal that funds your big life and pursue the activities you achieve it. We're going to talk more about that for just a minute. What we're trying to say here is, guys, start with what you're trying to do with your money, what you're making money for, and that will give you a better emotional attachment to doing the work that you need to do to get there. Number two, estimate, save for, and pay your taxes on time. When you're self-employed, you have to pay your taxes quarterly. And if you don't do that, you start to accumulate penalties and get in trouble with the IRS. Number three, use the proven models and systems of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Chart of Accounts. It's in the book, guys. It's in the back of the book in one of the appendixes. And as a little incentive to stay with us for the class, I'm actually going to show you at the end what I did to translate those charts of accounts into something that I use in my business to manage my finances. Number four, be fiscally savvy about reviewing your financials monthly. Gosh, nobody wants to sit down and look at the financials, especially if it's bad news or you're not really where you need to be yet. The discipline of doing it monthly is going to set up a great habit so that you keep track of what's going on in enough time that you can make adjustments. And number two, it's going to give you a chance to reflect and steer your course more correctly if you need to make a change. And I'm going to use an analogy here. I don't know if any of you folks out there are pilots, but on most airplanes today, they have what's called an autopilot. And the way an autopilot works is that it will, once the pilot sets the autopilot to the course that they want to travel, the autopilot will adjust that course every minute or every couple seconds if needed to make sure the plane's staying on course. Now, can you imagine if you were flying from New York to San Francisco and the pilot set the course and he didn't look at it again and he just kept going and the winds were blowing the plane in different directions? Gosh, he might end up in Vancouver, he might end up in San Diego if he never looked at his chart or his course during that 3-hour flight, and he would never make it to San Francisco. What the autopilot does is it checks that course frequently throughout that 3 hours of travel time, and it makes sure that by adjusting in little increments frequently, we stay on course without having to make big, giant adjustments. And that's the idea. Review your financials monthly so that you stay on course and you know what your business is doing and you can make adjustments, little adjustments in increments rather than making one big adjustment at the end of the year. Number five, pay yourself a salary. Okay, the best way to manage your money is to treat your real estate business like a business and pay yourself so that you know that what you put in your pocket every month or however often you pay yourself is yours to spend and do what you need to do with it. And the money that's in the bank account that you've set up for your business is there to fund your business. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes as well. And lastly, prepare now for a financially secure future. And that kind of circles back up to number one. Understanding what you want to achieve financially in life and starting from that point and understanding where you want to go is going to help you with your finances and managing your business. Now, there's a couple reasons that we go over this. Many agents don't understand and they confuse income with profit. Those are two different things. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Number two, most agents or a lot of agents don't save and pay taxes in a timely manner. And we all know what happens if you don't pay Uncle Sam. It eventually comes back to bite you, and it could cost you a lot more money than if you would have just set the money aside and paid on time. Next, a lot of new agents or a lot of agents in general don't make use of the tools that are available to them. And what we're talking about here in this case is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book with the guidance on how to manage your finances, how much you should be spending on marketing, how much you should be putting aside. Gosh, it's all there on paper, and if you follow the model, you'll be following the footsteps of successful agents who have made a profit and funded their big life. A lot of agents just don't understand finances. They don't want to. You probably didn't get in the business of real estate to be a financial expert. Unfortunately, when you start your own business, you are signing up to do a lot of other things besides just real estate. And understanding your finances is one of the biggest non-real estate things that is going to help you be successful. A lot of agents don't pay themselves a salary. They go from real estate commission to real estate commission, and the in-between valleys or in the slow months, they're kind of struggling. And if you paid yourself a salary and planned out a whole year's worth of finances, you'd be able to relax and not be so anxious when you were down a commission check, or when you were in a slow month or you weren't producing as much as you thought you needed to. And lastly, a lot of agents don't think about preparing for the future at this point. And we don't work for a big corporation, guys. So we don't have a 401k that you can stuff money into and have for retirement. You need to think about those things and plan ahead and act accordingly now, right from the time that you get your first paycheck, your first commission check, so that the habit's in place. I don't know how many of you have children. I know that when I was younger, one of the things my parents taught me is that whenever I got money, to automatically put a little bit of it in savings so that it would be there later on down the road. And I just had this habit from the time I was little, where I took my paper route money, and whatever I got, I took 10% and I put it in a savings account, and I just pretended I didn't have it. And that helped me develop the habit of saving money and planning for the future. Now, we don't have time, as I said, to go into all these topics in a lot of detail. I'm going to skim them and try to hit the high points. There is a class called Agent Financials that may be coming to your market center at some point. It's a 4-hour seminar on a deep dive on how to manage your finances. And every time I've taught it, I know the agents have given me great feedback about how much they learned from it to help them run their business. So let's dive into the next step. And again, we'll look forward to showing you that model that I set up at the end that maybe you can use for your own business. All right, we're going to start off with your big why. Gary Keller says money is good for the good it can do. Okay. If you think about it, we really aren't in this life just to say we made $1 million. We're in this life because we all enjoy the ability to create a financial freedom that will enable us to do the things that we want to do with our life, whether it be spend time doing things for charity, whether it be taking your family on vacation, whether it be putting your kids through college. Okay, all of those things that you want to do for yourself, for your family, for your community, those are all things that come into play. And I encourage you to take a moment at some point and think about what it is and put it down on paper, because when we put things on paper, we have a higher chance of actually achieving those goals. Put on paper what your big why is, and it could be specific. Hey, I'm in real estate to not just make a living. I want to send my kids through college without them having to borrow any money and take out student loans. It might be a short-term goal, like I started real estate because my family's never gone on a vacation, and I promised my kids I'd take them to Disneyland, or I'd take my wife to Hawaii for the honeymoon that we didn't have. Or I want to take care of my parents who are in are aging, and they're going to need to move out of their house and maybe be taken care of later in life. I want to help my church build a new school. The list is limitless. So think about that and actually commit that to paper, and then think about how much money you need to make to achieve that goal, whether it be, something over time, or maybe it's something in the near term, like I said, that'll happen next year for you. Okay? And again, any questions or feedback, or anybody wants to share what their big goals are, send them through. I'll be happy to share them with the group. So let's now look at a couple examples here of two agents who are managing their business. And we're going to look at a financially sound example and a financially unsound example. And for some of you, it may be fairly obvious what's going on here. And for others of you, it may be a new way of thinking. Either way, I think it's helpful. And we're going to be on page 4 in your participant guide at this point. So let's look on the left of my slide, on the top of your participant guide, at a new agent in your participant guide. We call her Jessica. She earns a commission of $9,000. And out of that $9,000, the first thing she does is she pays the market center her percentage for the company dollar and for royalties. And what her net check is from that commission is $5,760. Now, she takes that check and she puts it right into her bank account, the bank account that she's had since she was 4 years old. And then it transfers into her checking account and it's ready to spend. A little hint here, notice she's not putting away any money to fund her business, and she's not putting away anything to save for taxes, okay? That's one example. Now let's look at on the right side of the chart and on the bottom of your participant handout. In this instance, Jessica takes her $9,000 commission check. She gets the same $5,760 after the company dollar and the royalty check goes to Keller Williams. She puts $1,728 of that $5,760 in a business bank account, and she puts $4,032 in a personal savings account. And then of that $4,032 that's in her personal account, she immediately puts away $1,613 for taxes, anticipating that one commission check is going to cause her to have to pay state, federal, and self-employment taxes. And guys, don't forget, when you're self-employed, you have to pay self-employment tax, which is not something you pay when you work for an employer and they pay the self-employment tax, or they pay half of it at least. And then the rest of the money from that $4,000 goes into Jessica's wallet, $2,419. Now, how do you think Jessica feels in situation 2 about that money in her wallet? If you think about it, now Jessica knows, she has confidence that $2,400 in her wallet is money that she can spend on her living expenses and whatever else she wants to spend her money on for personal reasons. Because she's already put money aside for her business, so she doesn't have to worry about it. She's already put money aside for her taxes, so she doesn't have to worry about that. She can relax and know with confidence that she can blow through that whole $2,419 whenever she wants to, because it's all there for her. I'm going to ask a rhetorical question here. Which way do you think is more financially sound? Correct. The second way is the more financially sound way to manage your money when you're running a business and you're self-employed. Okay, the peace of mind that you get by knowing that your expenses are taken care of and that you can spend whatever the money is that's left over for whatever you need to spend it on, it is going to bring you a lot of relief and help you relax when you're out there doing your job, and you won't have to worry about finances as much. Okay, and we're going to talk in the future here about how we've come up with these percentages to divide the paycheck and the wallet. Okay, so as I said, the financially sound example is she gets one transaction, she has a $5,760 net paycheck, and $2,400 goes in her account, and the rest of it is put aside for taxes and for business expenses going forward. Okay? Okay, so let's look at what the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, provides in terms of models to help you understand how to manage your money. Now, I don't expect any of you all to be accountants. Fortunately, in my life, in my past career history, I was an accountant and I was in the finance world. So all of this stuff comes naturally to me, or a little bit easier to me than it might to some of you. And I just want you to understand that the Millionaire Real Estate Agent is a model that's done at a high level, and you can take it in chunks and do with it what you can do with it and grow from it, okay? As long as you understand the basics, you don't have to swallow the whole thing at once. And that's what we're gonna talk about today, is the basics. So in the MREA, in the Millionaire Real Estate Agents, there's two charts in front of you in your participant guide. We're on page 6. The chart that's labeled MREA Economic Model is where Gary is telling us how our commission should be allocated. And what he's telling us is that if we start with your commission, your gross commission, and make that 100%, 30% of it should go to, no more than 30% of it should go to cost of sales. No more than 30% of it should go to operating expenses. And then 40% of it should be net profit.
I want to talk about a couple of things on this slide. When Gary wrote this, keep in mind, this was for every agent that was grossing $1 million a year in gross sales commission. This is the model for a team. As single agents, your numbers are going to be different. This number honestly can be about 50% if you want it to be, right? And then your operating expenses should be right or still around 30, and then your cost of sales should be around 20, or you can kind of split that up a little bit. The other thing is that they've kind of changed this. I'm surprised it's not updated when they're teaching Ignite. Gary's also starting to teach you flip it. So what Gary's now saying is pay yourself first. If you're going to stick with this model and never break the 50% barrier and what you're going to pay yourself as a single agent, pay yourself first. You need to do 3, 4, 5 transactions before you figure out what these operating expenses are going to be in the cost of sales. It's important to understand the difference between operating expenses and a cost of sale. By definition, what is a cost of sale?
Photos?
No. I would not say photos. We'll get to it. I want a few more answers. I'll tell you why. What else? What's a cost of sale?
Or maybe like whining and dining?
No.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Marketing.
Marketing, no, marketing is not a cost of sale.
Your heart, your soul.
A cost of, that's marriage.
A
A cost of sale is money spent that you would not have to spend if you didn't close. Like a closing gift would be under cost of sale. Marketing is going to be operating expenses because you're going to market whether you close or not. There he is. Don't buy it, please. Buy it. No, you don't have to buy them. You get it for free.
Everyone's against
What are you
here.
teaching right now?
Agent financials. I'm not teaching much. I'm just commenting on it. I'm letting the video do the heavy lifting.
Oh, nice.
Ryan, do you know these 3 numbers? What's your percentage of profit, expenses, and cost of sale?
Yeah, I am about, I look at, I'm about a 60-40.
40 being here, 60 being
Expenses,
here.
my profit is 40.
Okay,
My expenses and cost of sale add up to be about 60.
so you're really close to this model,
Yep.
right?
And I specifically make sure that I'm spending money because that money that, one, it helps me at the end of the year for taxes,
Sure.
right? The more expenses I have, the lower my exposures. But 2, if I'm spending money, that means I'm following up with lead generating activities.
Right.
Because I'm spending money on those lead generating activities, which brings in our business.
That's right. Okay. And then in theory, do you go with this 30, 30, 40, or do you flip it and do your profit, pay yourself first, and then your operating expenses and cost of sales?
So this is where I'm not good. Okay, so delineating between what's a cost of sale and what's operating expenses.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't really tell you how to define those differently, so I let my bookkeeper do that.
Sure, 100% leverage that out, right?
Right.
By definition, a cost of sale is something that you spent that you would not have spent had you not closed. You're a transaction coordinator.
So
I don't pay my,
I could classify so much into that.
yes,
It's like, did I go, to this happy hour? And would I have spent that $80 on drinks to get this client? Maybe not, so it could be a cost of
in
sale.
no way, because you would have gone and spent that whether that client signed you or not. That's an operating expense.
Right.
It's not a cost of sale. Open house signs, not a cost of sale. Transaction coordinator. I don't pay my TC if I don't close.
Right.
That's cost of sale. Your
My
splits,
closing
your
gift.
closing
Closing
gift, right? Your,
Right.
so everyone knows what we're talking about. We'll say splits with Keller. I hate the word splits. Your investment with Keller, that's 21,000 a year. You don't pay that if you don't close. That's a cost of sale. So
I'm
especially
fine, by
as-
the way.
This is Ryan, the truck, I mean, the #1 single agent in the office.
Weirdo talking.
You got a buyer for that cobblestone house?
Which one is it?
The Whitman,
Where is it?
the one right next door to one of your listings, 78.
Oh, like the next door to the one,
Yeah,
not yet. What are you listening to that again?
we're going live,
It's a Whitman, it's a 3-bedroom finished basement,
4-bedroom, one in the basement with a full bath.
finished basement.
Yeah,
full bathroom,
next Friday,
Next Friday.
Yeah.
What are you going at, like
6.25.
Yeah, 6.5, that's the right price.
Yeah, I know some guy that works well in there told me it was the right price and it was great.
Um,
Also learn how to get the answers that you need so you can save yourself the work. Ryan works cobblestone.
right,
So, hey, what would you list it for? 6.25. Hey, seller, guess what we're listing for?
yeah,
Because Ryan said,
maybe actually,
okay,
I have a maybe.
let me know.
Nice to meet you all, lots, are you all new agents?
Yes,
Brand new, like just got your license?
I am.
I am.
What, look at the fresh and clean crew.
We got some on Zoom too. Apparently girls come in person, boys stay on Zoom. Seems to be how it works.
I'm here.
Oh, they're
Is that-
here
who is that?
now.
Is that
I don't even know who's out there on Zoom right now.
Yeah, it's Jimmy.
It's Jimmy.
What's up, Jimmy?
How are
Had
you?
a good conversation with Jimmy. Jimmy, are you gonna do what I told you to do?
I sure am.
So anyway, so Ryan really worries about is, at least in his world, 40-60. And then he lets his bookkeeper break down to 60, which is fine.
Yeah.
Right? But Gary has flipped this, pay yourself first and figure this out based on what you need. Right? As a single agent, there's not a ton of cost of sale. There's a lot more that goes into marketing, operating expenses, office rent.
True.
Like, right, you're paying office rent, right? You're paying that whether you close or not.
Yep.
Right?
I also pay a portion of my house as a home office.
Sure.
Be careful with your taxes that you do that
The word
correctly.
tax accountants do
Have a
that.
CPA, hire a CPA.
Yep.
Just hire a CPA.
Yes, and as a general rule, I make sure come hell or high water, I have at least one client meeting a year in my house.
Yep.
Because the IRS definition says, if you want the tax write-off for a home office, you have to meet clients there or be able to. So I try to meet one client a year. If in
And-
December 28th, I'm struggling, I invite my daughter over for a buyer presentation. She lives in the basement.
Well, legit,
Mhm.
I had the IRS show up at my house.
Damn, dude, I thought it was bad when you got a phone call from the real estate commission.
Like, so I believe I was on a
Boss list.
an audit list. And yeah, I was on an audit list and a field agent came out to verify whether or not they were gonna spend the money to go through a full audit on our business. Because, I mean, I'll write off $300,000 in operating expenses.
Yep.
Right? Huge red flag, right? And a portion of this is towards we have a portion of it at our house, for a home office. Now, fortunately, my home office is truly a home
It
office.
is. You ever see them on Zoom? Mine is too.
Like,
It's a thing.
I've got my logo, I've got file cabinets, I've got, the whole thing at desk. So they came over, when they saw that, it wasn't like, oh, hey, this is the spare bedroom that we're calling your office. Like, this is where I make all my phone calls, I do all my lead gen,
Yep.
I have all my trackers there, I've got my board, so there's no way that they could
That's
say this is a reason for audit.
Yep.
So, and I didn't get audited
That's awesome.
yet. It's just an inevitability. I will at some point.
But.
We all get our turn.
So how, okay, that's.
No, go ahead, ask your question.
I was just gonna say, so how does that work? Like, that you can just put it as a deductible?
Yeah,
And what your
so-
CPA will do, if you have legitimately dedicated office space, you will figure out what percentage of your overall square footage is being used for that
Mhm,
and apply that percentage to your mortgage payment.
mhm.
And then I don't know if it's dollar for dollar, or if there's a
It's
formula
not dollar for
beyond,
dollar.
there's a formula beyond that.
There's a formula.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I do have it. It is a bedroom. But if you walk into my house, I guarantee you, you will know I do business from there. My
Okay.
computer's set up there. I got boards, I got charts, I got every book that Gary's ever written, pretending like I've read them. Most of them I have, not all on the bookshelf. You know, it's clearly an office space.
So how does that work? Like, I mean, obviously you've got furniture in there, so would that count in there as well?
Sure.
But then, I mean, like I said, like I live with my boyfriend's parents, and so obviously like I don't.
You're stuck.
So that's theirs.
Unless you
but
pay
at
rent.
least- But at least like the furniture and like my computer setup and whatnot, like that.
Yeah, your computer, office supplies, things like that. And
Okay,
again, now that's gonna be operating expenses, because you're paying for that whether you close or not,
well,
right?
that's good to know, because.
So that's how we do it. Now, if you're a Remax agent, right? Your office bill every month that you pay, you're paying whether you close or not. And then some of them, it's like $1,200-1,300 a month.
A month, yeah.
Remax is very expensive to
We
be at.
just changed the formula, but it's still.
Yep.
expensive.
Kent went to 4,000.
Can't what is? Is it really? Well, did not know that. Seems pales my
I got a call from him.
$21,000 a year that I paid a year. Yesterday, yeah.
Congratulations. All right, sorry, I'm
So,
quit
yeah,
interrupting.
no,
your
it's fine.
thoughts.
So anyway, I just wanted to mention that the Gary's flipped to pay yourself first. Right, and this should be closer to 50% if you're a single agent. Right? And then it makes it a lot easier to pay your taxes.
That's awesome, I'm kicking out my roommate. I'm like-
No. If you kick out your roommate, you're probably gonna have to lose half the rent, right? So there's pros and
Yeah,
cons.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, wait.
And you said.
You have to go that
commission-
leverage though, because like, if you're actually doing it though. I don't know. Like you said. You said the commission split is the cost of sales, but like the office bill itself would be operating expense?
Yes.
Okay.
Because when, I don't have to pay any
Splits.
splits
Yeah.
to Keller Williams Park Meadows unless I have a closing. I have to pay my $100 a month to have my license on here. I choose to pay the $120 a month to have an office here. I'm paying that $220 a month whether I close or not.
So then technically, if the cost of sale is still, or, you know, like technically like the commission is higher than the cost of sale that they have listed because of the royalties and all that, right? So then your operating expenses should be less than.
Yes,
It sounds like the cost of sales would be higher than the operating expenses.
no, your operating expenses will be way higher.
Oh, okay.
There's not a lot that you have to pay. Or there's not a lot that you have to pay as cost of sale, like I said. Your company splits are cost of sale, transaction coordinators is cost of
Okay.
I
sale.
guess for
Oh,
that
yeah, 'cause
first,
marketing.
until you hit your cap, then your cost of sale is high, but then after that, it's not really.
No, your cost of sale will drop after your cap.
That's what I'm
Because you're,
saying.
yeah, because you're no longer paying
You just
But
pay
then-
royalty.
30% to the office.
But then that's why the operating expenses go up, because that's why.
It
like,
can.
You know, like you can do
It
the
can. You
marketing,
can choose
the
what to do with it.
generation,
You
or
can choose
like
what to
any
do
way
with
you
it,
want to do that.
marketing, lead generation, you can put it into your salary, it's whatever you choose to do with it. But just stay with, here's how I look at it, I keep this number under 50%. And I'm good, and I'm like Ryan, I let my bookkeeper, whatever, I don't even look at that. Right, I hired an assistant this year, where does that go?
Operating,
It's an operating expense, I'm paying her whether I close or not. Right? You know what I learned? I hired her January 4th. You know what I learned in February? I better start closing some deals.
Yeah.
Learn that real quick. Right? So just make sure that you know at least the difference between your profit and this. And then once you cap, you can decide what you want to do with it. Right? So they made the math easy, which is always fun when you get a commission for like $11,964.38. It's always fun. Okay, I just wanted to mention that.
Profit out of which you pay your taxes and your personal living expenses. Okay, and if you flip to the right, we've created an example here with a $10,000 commission check to make the math a little bit easier. So a $10,000 commission check, 3,000 of it should be set aside for cost of sales. 3,000 should be set aside for operating expenses, and 4,000 of it should be what profit you should take from that commission check. And then, of course, the next step is to take some out for taxes, and the rest of it's yours to spend on your living expenses. We're going to go over in just a couple slides here what cost of sales is and what operating expenses are and how all that works. I just want to make sure that you understand the concept of how a commission check should be broken out if you're really planning to manage your finances appropriately. And if you want to use a crude example of how to think about this, in the old timey movies where you know, they didn't have credit cards and fancy bank accounts before, and you see the housewife take the husband's check, and she'd have mason jars on the table, and as soon as she got the check, she would say, okay, here's $1 that goes towards rent, here's $2 that goes towards groceries, here's another $1 that goes towards this, and then whatever was left from the mason jar divvying up was their spending money for the next pay period. And that's really what Gary's telling you, is basically, it's as simple as that. Out of every dollar, 30 cents should be saved for cost of sales, 30 cents should be saved for operating expenses, and 40 cents would be left over for profits to pay your taxes and your personal expenses. Okay? If it's getting too complicated for you guys, again, just shoot me a message and I'll slow down a little bit and I'll try to explain whatever it is that you're having trouble with. All right, so let's talk now about the flow of money. Okay? Let's talk about how money flows through a business and how we should think about it in terms of planning our finances. And we're going to jump to page 7 on your participant guide. First of all, and this is where the term income and profit come in that we talked about earlier. The money that comes into the business is called income. The money that that goes out to pay business expenses are called expenses. And what's left over after you subtract your expenses from your income is profit. Okay, so income is different from profit. Income is the raw amount coming into your business, and profit is what's left over. To do a good job of planning, you want to start with your profit in mind. How much money do I want to have at the end of the year? Knowing how much money I want to have at the end of the year, let's calculate back into how much income I need to generate that money. And then from the income I'm generating, using Gary's model of 30% for cost of goods, cost of sales, and 30% for income expenses or for operating expenses, I can calculate how much my expenses should be. So the 3 questions that you should be asking yourself to do a good job of planning your business and setting yourself up for financial success is, how much money do I want in my bank account at the end of the year? How many homes do I need to sell to generate the income I need to actually achieve that profit goal? And then how can I minimize my expenses so that I maximize my profit by keeping under those guidelines that Gary Keller gave us of 30% for cost of sales and 30% for operating expenses. Okay, we are going to do an example at the end of this presentation of how to actually do this calculation, and then you can do it on your own after the class. And guys, I really recommend you give it a shot. And if you need help, just reach out to someone in your office that can help you, or somebody else, your team leaders or your coaches, they can walk you through this as well. Okay, income. What's the income for a real estate agent? Really, income that real estate agents are going to see in their real estate lives are really come from 4 buckets. Number 1 is listing income. So when you sell a home. Number 2 is sales income, when you represent a buyer and you earn a commission on representing a buyer. Number 3 is referral income, when you refer somebody a client and they pay you a referral check. Okay. Now, if you're receiving a referral and you have to pay a referral check to another agent, that's an expense, and we're going to talk about that second. Okay. But when you are referring a client to somebody and you're paying another agent, or you're receiving a percentage of their commission as a referral, that's referral income. And then leasing income, when you help people either lease a house or when you help a tenant lease a house and get the commission on that. That's leasing income. Now, you don't have to do this division of income when you start. I imagine that most of you are going to start as buyer's agents, and that's where most of your income comes from. I think that you can grow into this, and I didn't actually separate listing and sales income in my own tracking until my second year when I actually started doing listings. And the reason for separating listing from sales income is twofold. Number one, there are different expenses associated with listing, generating income from listing and generating income from sales. Okay, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And secondly, tracking where you get your income from, whether it be just listing or sales or all four of these, is going to help you when you do your planning for the next year. You can look down at your finances and go, hey, great, I'm getting 60% of my income from listings and 40% from buyers. So when I create my financial model for next year, I'm going to use that ratio to figure out how many contacts I need to make and what I need to do to generate the income from that percentage. Or maybe you want to set yourself a goal and say, last year I did 50% listings and 50% in sales. Next year I want to do 75% listing and 25% sales buyers, so you can adjust your expenses accordingly. Okay, it's always good to know something rather than not, to help give you the best information to make a decision. And guys, don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. I guarantee you that whatever you do towards managing your finances and recording them is going to help you, even if it's not as fancy as having a very complicated model and using QuickBooks and having an accountant and all that stuff. Just take a step and do something, and I guarantee you that you'll be better off at the end of the year. All right, good. Now let's talk about the expense side of the equation. There are two types of expenses. First, I want to talk about the expenses that we call cost of sales. Now, this term can be complicated for you non-financial types, which is most of you. Cost of sales are the type of expenses that are generated only when you generate income. So an expense would be considered a cost of sale if it occurs when you are generating some commission income, either buyer or listing or rental or referral. Okay, it's whatever cost you to do that specific thing. And remember that if you didn't generate any income, you wouldn't have any cost of sales. Okay, I hope that's clear. And if it's not, please shoot me a message or log in and give me a shout while we're live, and I will go over it in more detail. The trick is to remember that cost of sales are expenses that are associated with actually generating revenue or income. Okay, and for most new agents, the only cost of sales that you have to deal with are your royalty fees and your company dollar or your cap that you pay to your office. Those are, and think about it this way: you don't have to pay a cap to Keller Williams if you don't generate a commission check, right? So it's a condition of generating revenue, and therefore it's a cost of sales. Referral fees may cause you to have to generate some expenses. And there may be other things in your business when you get going that may be considered cost of sales. When you do listings, there are some things that you might pay for, like pictures or staging, that are affiliated with a revenue that you get or an income that you get from a specific transaction. But don't worry about that yet. For now, just focus on the only cost of sales that you're probably going to see when you're working with buyers is commissions, royalties and caps, or what you pay to the market center. Now, the other type of expense are called operating expenses. And operating expenses are, and I'm actually going to write this down here because it's not really delineated quite as clearly as I think it should be in your handout. But we are going to talk about more. But operating expenses. Remember, cost of sales are related to each transaction made. Operating expenses occur no matter what revenue you generate. Okay, think about it this way. If you have an office that you work out of for Keller Williams, you know, you've set up a real estate office and you're paying rent. Your rent to the landlord is not predicated on whether or not you make a commission check. You got to pay that rent every month anyway. So that's a fixed operating expense. The other term you'll hear for operating expenses are fixed expenses. Okay, the $75 fee or whatever fee you pay to the market center, the technology fee, that's a fixed or an operating expense, because you have to pay that every month whether or not you generate any income. Okay, and just, you know, keep it simple, folks. If you look at a check, if you're writing a check or you have a credit card transaction for something, if it's something that is going to occur every month, your fees to your CRM, things, you know, the paper that you buy, the printer or the copier fees, all those types of fees are going to be operating expenses because they occur independent of whether you have generated any income. And guys, for now, I would keep it simple. I would just say for going out of the gate as a new agent, the only cost of sales that you are probably going to have are your company cap and your royalty fees. Everything else should be considered an operating expense at this point until you get farther into the business and you can start really getting granular about this, discerning between what might also be a cost of sales. That's advanced accounting and advanced financial management. And that's something you probably don't need to stress out about at this particular point in your career. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So let's go through an example of cost of sales here. Okay, and remember I said the cost of sales are sales that only occur when you generate income. And for you guys right now, probably the only cost of sales that you're gonna have to deal with is a cap, the company dollar, and the royalty fee. And let's pretend for this example that the market center that I work in takes out 30% of all of my commission checks for company dollar cap, and they take 6% out for royalties until I pay off the royalty fee. Okay, it's probably, those fees are probably different for every office. So we're just going to use an example.
I want to go through this with you guys. As far as goal setting and what do you want to make this year? It's one of my favorite things about real estate is you can make as much or as little money as you want. It's your call. What do you want it to be? So let's talk about how to set that goal and work backwards, because you can set your goal. You can work it backwards. It will literally tell you what you need to be doing on a daily basis. Can you guys on Zoom see the board?
No, you have screen sharing.
Oh, yeah.
I sure can.
You can?
Oh, wait. I thought you meant I can see the top of the board.
Oh, okay, wow.
Oh, all right, let's do this then.
You got presets.
Yeah, remember, where's the blue paper? Yeah, I'll hop in there.
How about that?
Bingo.
All right. So everybody do this. Let's do a little quiz, entertain the instructor real quick. I actually want you to write down how much money you want to make this year.
Now,
December?
are you talking about like take home after taxes?
Do we write it right here?
I want to know how much money 12 months from today. I want you to imagine going to a bank today and opening up an account with $0 in it.
No.
And 12 months from today, what's the amount of money that you want in there that is your money after taxes, after all your expenditures?
12 months? So
In
not
12
like
months.
for tax
Nope.
season?
Not for tax season, for the next 12 months. Once you write it down.
You said you've already paid taxes.
You've already paid taxes. It's 100% your money. You could literally light it on the ground and burn it if you wanted to. Now, here's my question, just out of curiosity, and if this is true on Zoom, let me know. How many people wrote $100,000? None.
I'm realistic here,
I can't remember what I wrote down.
I said, what do you want? The question was, what do you want?
Oh, that's true, it's true. I guess
Right?
that she could start
How
saying,
much
don't
do
know.
I want? Okay, let me take
Right.
it real quick.
All right, we're gonna start with 100 grand. We're
Okay.
gonna say that that number's 100,000 because it makes the math simple,
I'm gonna do a little bit higher.
okay? So if you want $100,000 in the bank, and we've learned that that's 40% of all your commissions earned. 100% is 40% of what number?
40%. 400, no,
What's,
that's 25.
what's 400,000, what's 100,000 divided by 0.4?
That's 250,000.
250,000?
Yeah.
So, which means if this is what we want to have in our bank account, that means that our our gross income needs to be $250,000.
But really, it's still not that because you said after taxes.
Yeah, but but taxes are already considered, I believe taxes are operating expenses. Actually, technically, I would make an argument that taxes are cost of sale. Because if I don't make an income, I'm not paying taxes,
Right.
right? So it's a gross commission income. 250 grand.
So then they said to set aside in the first part of the video and first few pages, they said that, the example lady should set aside 40% of her like net after paying all the other things for taxes, so then that makes her actual net like.
Yeah.
So she can do it that way. Here's what I choose to do. I look at it like, again, taxes are actually a cost of sale. So when I look at my 40, 30, 30, right? I want my 40% in my world, 40% is my net. Because my taxes are coming out of my cost of sale. For myself. Now, taxes that I have to pay on behalf of my assistant are different. Those are those operating expenses. Right? Because I'm paying her every 2 weeks, whether I close or not. So when I look at it for this was my number, this would be net after taxes. Okay, with me? So it's $250,000 in gross commission income. Do any of you happen to know what the average commission per closing is in our market center?
About like 15.
It's not quite there yet. It's right around 10,000,
Oh.
give or take a little bit. Now, I haven't looked in a couple months either. But I know as of May, it was 98.50 is the average commission in our market center. To make the math simple, we're gonna use 10,000.
So you calculate by like average dollar amount, not average.
It depends on what you're looking for. We're talking about the dollars of income here, so we're gonna talk about the
Oh,
dollars
okay.
of commission.
So are you
Right.
saying that like?
You should track your numbers, hold on, Jimmy, you should track your numbers at the end of the year so that you know what your average commission percentage was. Because I will tell you where you need to script practice.
Okay.
2 years ago, my average commission was about 2.1. And I went back and I looked and I was like, wow, I'm discounting too much on the list side. So I really focused on two things, not taking that discount and upping my price point last year. And I was able to up it to 2020. My average was about 2.4. Hey, Ryan, do you know your average commission percentage?
2.62%.
My point is he knew his number.
Mhm.
So when you look back at the year, 2019, I was like, I had a good year, and I looked and it was 2.1, and I was like, that's terrible. So it's about what number am I trying to get to figure out, you should always know your number, right? It's 2.16. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a
You don't
fantastic
know your
number.
numbers. Me. You're just flying blind, like legitimately flying blind.
Yes, you have no direction.
Like, so you want, so I'll produce, I'm on track for 63 closings this year, right? How do I get to that? How is it crazy? Because I know I need to complete 11 appointments every single month. If I complete 11 appointments every month,
Because
then my percentage of winning those contracts will translate to 63 closings based on how many I can write and sign a buyer's agency or listing agreement, less how many that terminate due to whatever situation I lose throughout the way.
Yep.
right? And if you
That's what we're working on now, is working backwards to get to how many people you need to talk to on a daily basis.
Right, so how many people do I need to talk to every day to get to 11 appointments every month? Well, I need to talk to, it's, about 3 to 5 people.
That's
a day.
that's one number that's gonna be a little different in your
For
world
me.
because of how you lead gen.
Right. That's for me, is just in my crazy weird world.
Yep.
Right? For somebody else like Michael Lee or like Ben Kinney's team, you might need to make 105 phone calls every day, because 105 phone calls turns into 30 connected calls,
Yep.
which turns into 3 appointments set, which turns into 1 completed appointment.
That sounds like a lot. of work.
Depends on your definition of
Depends on,
work.
yeah, what do you? consider?
Ryan and Ryan could be the guy that sits down and calls 105 people. He don't want to.
My first team that I was on, I was on a team when I first started,
Yeah.
I made 200 phone calls a day.
But he hated it. Now look at him. I know
Right.
you love him, blow it up.
Hated it.
Cool. All right, thanks, Ryan. My point was on you. I wanted you to show them that you know your number.
If you want to kind of learn how I do or see what I do, I talked to Jimmy about this. Feel free to reach out to me
Okay.
outside of class.
Yeah.
Because the way that I do my business is not for everybody. Right?
Nope.
And the reality is that I can tell everybody exactly what I do and exactly how much I spend and all those things. And 99.9% of people won't do it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So if our average commission is 10 grand, which is
Yeah.
roughly what it is in our market center, how many transactions is that? 250,000 divided by 10,000 per, it's 25. Right? So now I know if I'm following this model, if I do 25,000, if I do 25 transactions, I will net 100 grand next year. So we keep breaking it down. How many a month is 25 transactions?
12.2.
Well, it's
Sorry,
actually,
2.2.
it's actually 2 point. Whatever it comes out to.
Now, do you always just round up to the whole?
In real
number?
estate, yes, you always round up.
'Cause you can't have point of a person.
You cannot have point of a person. You can have 0.5 of a transaction if you co-list or co-buy or something like that,
Okay.
right? But this really comes down to
Oh, it's at 2.2.
2.1, really, right? For today's purposes, let's call it 2 a month. You need 2 closings a month. 'Cause here's the thing, if you do 2 closings every month, you'll trip into a third piece and have that last transaction,
You just
right?
Gypped yourself 50K.
No, yeah, I'll find it. Right? I'll find it with referral fees.
Mhm.
Right, right now I have 1, 2, 3 outbound referrals. I have one in Boise, Idaho, I have one in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I have one in Houston, Texas. So that's pretty cool,
You generally just do the color.
100%. All right, so I gotta do 2 closings a month. Okay, so now I go, okay, 2 closings a month. Now I know that my conversion rate is about 90%. If I have an appointment, I will convert that 90% of the time. Right? So that means to hit the 2 a month, I need to have, oh, sorry, I skipped a step. I know that 90% of the people I get under contract close. Right? Which means if 90% of them close,
And you have 10% of people that just don't close.
10%, no, 10% don't close for various different reasons. Buyer loses their job, COVID, right? My number is actually like 97, but I'm teaching the basics. So I need 25 a year, and that is 90% of what? What's 25 divided by 0.9?
27.7.
27.7, we're gonna round up, we're gonna say, so now I know I need 28 people under contract. Right? Now I know my conversion rate's about 90%. If I have an appointment, about 90% of the time I'm gonna convert. The national average is 75. But I know my number is 90, right? So it's
31.
31. So I need to have 31 appointments. I know 31 appointments now will lead to that number. right? So now your goal does not become, I'm gonna make $100,000 this year. What did your goal just become? Your goal became, I need 31 appointments.
It's 3 a month.
So let's just call it 3 a month.
It's 3.59 or 2.59.
That's 3 a month. Which means we'll stretch ourselves and let's have 1 appointment.
a week.
Well, but based on this number, every 10 days.
Oh, okay. You said
A
stretch,
hundred-
so I was
stretch,
like,
that's fair. But we're 1 short over here, remember? Because we actually needed 1 more transaction. If you set 1 appointment every 10 days, you will get $100,000 of pure profit in your business next year. Now, how much easier does that sound as a new agent? To break it all the way down and go, I need 1 appointment in the next 10 days. And if I do that consistently, I will get to 100,000. How much easier and more easy is that to swallow than I gotta make $100,000 this year? Right? So I would tell you, you do your lead gen every day until you've made 1 appointment. Depending on what lead generation you're gonna do. As soon as you set an appointment, you're done.
There's a thing though with like those lead generations, because something happens like in the process, right? Either like the credit is not
Mhm.
fully there,
Yep.
like they say.
But we've already
Oh.
calculated that in when we said that only 0.9% of the people that go under contract will close.
Right,
and
and I get that, because like
Yep.
inspection can fall through, jobs,
Yep.
you know, all that. So it's better to, you know, push up sometimes the numbers just to play safe.
Push it up if you want. We've calculated it in based on national averages, though. The national average, well, we went 90% on the conversion rate. Right? So yeah, stretch yourself and make it 1 appointment a week. Every week. So do what you need to do to get an appointment. I don't care if it's a buyer or a seller. When you get a little more experience, Gary will tell you, control the listing, control the market. So you should be lead generating for listings. At this point, I'd coach a little bit different, take whatever business you can get. If you lead gen for listings, the buyers will come. They just will. Buyers fall out of trees.
And I mean, it seems like a lot of times the people who are selling will end up being buyers in Colorado.
Yes, and if they're not, you refer them out. Do that 4 times a year. That's a full trend, that's a full commission. Right? So now how much easier and how much of a little bit less do you have around business to know if I'm making $100,000, it's 1 appointment a week? That seems way more palatable to me.
Yeah, I definitely understand how you look at your net and then they always say double it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, all those other.
All the other
expenses.
expenses, right?
Yeah,
50% for cost of sale and your operating expenses, right?
yeah, didn't they also say like to grow your business for the next year, just to, why not double it next year, like that sort of thing?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And one thing is, once, whatever you do in the next 12 months, that becomes your minimum every year. You will go up and up and up every year. Right?
Mhm.
When you get to a point where you're like, hey, that's the maximum I can do. I need to build a team now. I need an agent. That number is approximately 36 transactions. If you do 36 transactions in a year, you need an assistant at least. Now, there's one other thing I want to point out, and then I have got to get going. You guys are welcome to finish watching that video if you want. There's a way to make these numbers a little bit less. How do you do that?
hiring market.
This number goes up. This number goes up.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll use Ryan's numbers because his are really high. Because he was saying 2.6% is his average commission percentage, right? Chances are you're gonna get 2.8 as the buyer's agent. You just are, that's what's standard in the industry. So we're just gonna say to get to $10,000 in commission. What's the sale price of that house? Right, let's say let's say that you do all buyers and you get 2.8 per. So 10,000 divided by,
357,000
350, let's call it 358. Now, how many transactions did we need to do?
30.
20, we needed to do
So 25.
25, right?
Yeah, 25.
What's 25 times 358,000?
8.9 million. Roughly.
8.9, whoops, 8.
That's
0.9
not what
million.
they call the sales volume.
This is your gross sales volume, or GSV. If you do 8.9 million, at 2.8, you'll get $100,000 in bank at the end of the year. Right? But what happens if you just simply up this to 500 grand? What's 500,000 times 0.28?
17,000. Oh, I'm sorry. 14,000.
14,000.
Yeah, extra 4,000.
An extra $4,000 per, right?
Oh, that's not
That's
exactly
Now,
why I'm
what's-
shooting higher.
What's 14,000, what's
First.
14,000 times 25?
Was that
What's 14,000 times 25?
300? Oh, I'm sorry. 350,000.
350,000. So if you did 25 transactions at 500,000, which is 12.5 mil. Gross sales volume, this is your gross commission income, times 40%. What's 350,000? 350,000 times 40%.
140.
Now that number, that was 100,000 in our bank account to start with, is now 140,000. All I did was up your price point a little bit.
$500,000 homes in this area, that's,
It's actually below average in the
Yeah.
MLS.
yeah, that's easy.
Yep. So go do $1 million homes,
Exactly.
right? Generally speaking, I'm not gonna go through the math because I'm running short of time. Generally speaking, to get to cap so that you no longer pay 3% royalty or I'm sorry, 6% royalty or 30% to KW Park Meadows, so that whatever that commission check is yours, is roughly a gross sales volume of 2.2 mil. Divide that by whatever your average price point is going to be, and that will tell you how many transactions you need to cap. I capped yesterday and it was my 6th transaction since I rolled over.
One guy on Zoom last week just closed a $1.2 million.
Yeah. So guess what? He's halfway there. Lindsay and Matt Talfuse closed a $1.3 million listing and they double ended it. They brought the buyer. They literally capped it in one transaction. So that you can see how that all changes your math, but that's also why you have to know your math. You have to know that your average transaction, so your average commission percentage is 2.6. So you can go back and flip the math and say, how do I make more but do less? So you got to know your numbers. Know your numbers. That's the second, the most important thing that I will tell you before I get out, since this is the last class that I'll have the opportunity to teach you, at least as far as Ignite goes. Number one, pay your taxes. It's the most important thing. Okay.
Seriously.
Number two, know your numbers. So I know roughly, although I'm a little behind on staying on track with it, how many appointments or how many people I need to talk to get an appointment. So that I know today I need to talk to X amount of people to get an appointment, times my conversion ratio, times my close ratio, times my commission percentage. So I can figure out all my numbers. I know right now, my commission percentage this year is about 2.2. It's down a little bit. I've been very buyer heavy this year and there have been a lot of 2.5s. I know a lot. I said I've got my 3 referrals out there right now, and I have in the last 2 days I received 2 referrals for a buyer and a seller in Colorado Springs. And this morning the buyer signed the documents to write to buy.
What referral percentage are you expecting on those?
I don't expect any if I refer it out.
Okay,
Standard in the industry that everyone will work with is 25.
okay.
Hey, Ricky,
Yeah,
I got a question about that.
yep,
If I owe another agent in another state a referral of $2,500,
yep.
does that come out of the total commission before I pay Keller Williams the marketplace? Or does that come out of my,
It's the first thing deducted.
okay,
So you'll pay the 25% to the other agent and then your company splits on the rest.
okay,
I think. And then when you receive a referral, you're gonna pay your company dollar splits on that too,
okay,
which is fine because
yeah,
I don't care, right?
Get you close to the cap.
To get you closer to cap, absolutely. And trust me. So much of all of this made sense to me the first year that I capped and got my first 100% commission.
Well, 90 after royalty, right?
No, you cap on royalty,
What's the royalty cap again?
$3,000.
Oh, three, I thought it was 6,000.
No, it's 6%, $3,000.
Okay,
That goes to Keller Williams International for Gary Keller to be in business. $18,000, 30% of each commission until you cap goes here for us to run this market center. And after that, it's literally 100%. If the commission's $17,000,
Is there any
You get a
fees
check.
or anything like that with it?
zero. Any dollar that comes after you cap, any dollar that comes out of your transaction, out of your commission was your choice. Transaction coordinator. Did I agree to pay half the inspection fee? Whatever. And when you sit down, when you are a 43-year-old, 44-year-old kid at the time from Casper, Wyoming, town of 40,000 people. You get your car after a closing and you got a check made out to you for $17,000. I wept. I didn't know what to do with myself. I had a check for $17,000 made out to me. It was my money. I had no idea what to do with it.
That's where people get crazy and don't pay their taxes.
That's when you get crazy and you
You're like,
and
"Oh,
you literally go
no,
buy blue suede shoes.
I need a new car, need a new.
Which, by the way, I wore today because I had a listing appointment at 1, right? I wear these for listing appointments when it's dry outside and for closing.
And then.
You do not want to get blue suede shoes wet, right? Can't make this stuff up. This is why I love my life. I walk into the building today and what are they doing out in front of the building?
Spraying.
They were mopping the sidewalk. She's spraying and scrubbing and I'm like, I wore my don't get wet shoes. What are you doing?
Better
So-
not sweat on your feet.
Right? So you lose your mind and you go buy yourself something crazy like that. Right? And then I really got in tune with all of this so I could start saving my money and do things like invest and have retirement and I don't know, pay for my kids and stuff, right?
How's that?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. All right, if you guys ever have any questions, you all know how to get a hold of me. You guys out on Zoom, same with you. Brent, I will get a hold of you later this week. I owe you a phone call.
hey, thanks, Ricky.
Yep, all right, we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
thank you. I was trying to figure out how I want to lead you.